To call the committee of the whole to order for a closed session. Is there a motion to go into, at 6:05 PM? And
Second.
could someone read the motion, please?
Is there a second?
There is. Second.
All right, and then there'll be a roll call vote.
Correct. Trustee Lynn. Trustee Stokebrand. Trustee Ursink.
Yes.
Trustee Kudo. Trustee Moore Baldoff.
Yes.
President McCaig.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right.
At 7:01, we'll call the Community and Business Relations Committee meeting to order. The clerk. Call the roll. We have to. Thank you.
Oh,
Here.
Trustee
Here.
Okay. Thank you. We're going to go into agenda items. So how do you want to do this? Do you want to just go through them, or do you want me to read them through them, or what's?
For purposes of the ordinance, I can, and I know that Attorney Bayer was meaning to join us. So I'm just going to glimpse to see if he's in the other room, wrong room, but
Yeah.
Wanted to hear if there were any questions or comments relative to the ordinance draft that was put before you. So that's the first part. If there's any questions or clarifications there. The second is with regards to the special event permit fee. That was something that this committee had requested there be more research done on and then brought back. Oh, okay.
Hello, sir.
Okay, I was just like, I think it's in the wrong room. It just explained that our first task is to review the ordinance draft.
I did have a couple of questions on the draft. I was just trying to figure out some of the limitations, the places you can't have the block party. And I just wondered if this was maybe some commas missing here. I'm on residential block party. Sorry, I'm trying to find the page number. Is it basically not the location? We have North Murray band, North Murray south of Capitol. Is that just for the block where the police station is? Was my guess. I mean, now the fire station. So I wondered if that was supposed to be on North Murray, south of Capitol and north of Shorewood Boulevard. If it's just that block, because I would guess that the rest of Murray could have block parties. No?
Group policy prohibits block. I don't know the history of that. I believe I'm guessing it's based in the fire department. And group policy prohibits it. We've Murray, Maryland, and Downer, all three of those streets south of Capitol.
So I was thinking Downer and Maryland have a bus, right? Bus route.
I don't think Maryland does.
Oh, you're right.
Maryland used to.
But Downer definitely does.
So Downer and obviously not, why would we not allow? Well, Maryland is just considered an arterial, but Murray is supposed to be our north-south bike boulevard, but I just can't believe you couldn't have a,
I don't know the history of that. I don't know.
Do you want to come up to a microphone?
Sure.
Chris, is that what you're? Okay.
Oh, okay, I got it.
I'm sorry, I was trying to figure out what all the science decision was made. Okay. I know. Sorry about that.
I mean, if we're updating the ordinance and nobody knows why we have it that way now, why don't we change it?
My only
mean,
oh, go ahead, Bart.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we can confirm with DPW, fire department and police department if they want to keep that prohibition in place when we bring it back for consideration on the 19th. And if there's no reason to, we'll just remove those, but if there's reason to, we'll provide that reason.
And then on public premises above that. I didn't see the beach mentioned.
Is that part of Atwater Park?
That falls under Atwater Park and Beach permit.
Yeah, it includes merely because there's a different section of the code that regulates the permits there. And that was one of the things that we looked at because like, for example, with respect to a block party, you know, you're talking about an event that's going to be all day and there's different types of considerations for safety and barriers and regulation, traffic and things like that that are sort of unique and different from usually an event in a park is generally reserving an area for something like a ceremony or a wedding or, you know, a particular event that will be on for a certain number of hours. And there's different considerations for the parks. There was also a few years back, there was a special arrangement that was made with the surfboard company or business over on Capitol. And there was a special arrangement to allow them to sell or rent items down at the beach. So we wanted to keep that separate, or at least we thought that it made more sense to keep that process separate because, for example, you wouldn't want somebody pulling a permit to have a residential block party, big something. So that was kind of why we left them different, but, you know, always open to additional suggestions and ideas. Another way, more of it.
I just think for premises, if you're excluding, you should include Atwater Beach, just to make it clear, right? Because that's what we're doing, right? Is you're saying the places that you can't apply for one of these permits for is Atwater Park, Hubbard Park, River Park, Triangle Park, Village Nature Preserve, and Humboldt Park and
Oh, I
Atwater
see. So you'd add the word Atwater
Beach.
Park/beach.
Yeah.
Okay, sure, absolutely.
And then under vendor, any person who sells goods, including food products, we don't deal with beverages, including alcohol here, because that goes under the separate alcohol rules. But what if someone do you want to include beverages there? Who sells goods, including food products, but we don't see anything about beverages. If you're going to be, I'm just thinking for clarity.
Yeah, this
If
was,
somebody wants to sell drinks, non-alcoholic, obviously for alcohol, they have to go through the other.
yeah, I mean, we can certainly add that. The definition, I think, was taken out of the thing. That wasn't changed from the existing code. And I think it would, you know, beverages in my mind would also be a food product, but it's
Okay.
certainly, we can certainly add that for additional clarity to anyone that might be.
Like if someone's going to sell water, bottled water. And then I'm on under my 462-4 under E fee. In addition to these applicable fees, additional fees may be charged on a per man hour basis for village services. First of all, I change it to per person.
Are already done.
Okay, thank
Mark and I
you.
talked about that this afternoon. That
And
was
s-
copied from the earlier.
Okay, and then so that's referring to police and DPW. Is there any other, is that correct? Just those two agencies?
When it, go ahead.
Oh, I just don't think we got descriptive as to those two, because leaving it open, if there is something else that needs to be charged for, then we put up with an.
Okay,
option,
so
but
then just for my own
typically-
information, that's generally who would be charged. It'd be for like garbage or security,
Correct.
police. Okay.
But if I remember correctly, we don't typically do that. Am I
We-
remembering that
We
correctly?
have not in the last year. We have in the past. And that's why we're going to be talking about fees next.
Okay.
Because that's always been an issue of contention, and depending on which board has been present has also.
Lovely.
Yeah, so
And
we're
I
gonna
guess
solve it
my
together.
understanding was we were trying to be as kind and generous during COVID because people wanted to do things outside. And
Mhm.
so, okay, back, and then I'm on D, barricade installation, monitoring and removal. Barricades will be delivered by the village. And then at the end of that paragraph, after the block parties finish, the barricades shall be promptly removed. It doesn't say by whom. And I just, isn't this where, because we don't have DPW staff on the weekend, do we want to put in here just as a point of information, or do you not do that because it's an ordinance? It's removed by the block party people, just
Like
move to the side
The
and then
applicant places
for
them in the right of way.
DPW to pick up at a future date.
Good point.
I don't know. Is
Yes.
that something that would
That's
just,
what happens. Yep.
Yeah, they generally just move them onto the,
so do we need to clarify that in the ordinance or not? I don't know.
we can certainly, I mean.
I think
if
I think we
can.
should, just so that folks know that they're responsible for it.
Mhm.
But that the DPW will pick it up later. They don't
Right.
have to return it to the yard.
They just need to get it out of the street.
Right. And then again, streets where residential block parties are prohibited. There were those that seemed odd to me. Maryland, I guess, is an arterial. I can see that. Murray seems to be that's all I had. Thank you.
One additional clarification on that list. I don't know what happened to my voice. Morris was left out unintentionally. So Morris, south of Capitol Drive, is also currently prohibited. So once again, I'll confirm that with DPW and whoever. But the current list also does prohibit Morris. I forgot to mention that previously. So we'll add that back in unless it can be removed.
Can we ask DPW and PD about, and North Shore Fire about Murray, about the restrictions?
Yeah.
And again, if they don't have a legitimate reason to keep it the way that it currently is, I agree with Trustee Stokebrand that we would remove it and allow for block parties.
But I would agree with the rest. Now thinking about it, Maryland is as much an arterial as Morris. So
Yeah, I'll confirm all four streets. I mean, Downer, I think with the bus road is going to be pretty easy to say that we shouldn't allow, but the other ones I'll confirm.
and Trustee Baldoff isn't here, but she lives on Maryland.
She
so-
does live on there. One,
Is she on
so
Maryland?
she lives on Maryland. One question about trick or treating. Have folks, and sometimes in the past, I've seen that Morris north of Capitol has been closed. Other times it's not closed for cars. Does anyone have any history on that? I know this is a bit of a tangent, but
Did you
Talking
say
about
related
trick-or-treating?
only to trick
trick
or
or treating,
treating?
yeah, during the trick or treating hours. And I only, because I grew up on that block, my parents still live on that block.
Mhm.
And it's great to have a million kids out. It's just really dangerous when trick or treating's happening. Because people just drive up and down the street and kids are running all over the place. Just, is that something the village does, or would someone on that block have to request that the street be closed so that kids can safely go back and forth?
The block would need to request it. We don't close it
Okay,
for a purpose. But I
Okay.
think that kind of gets to there's two questions that I had in the. One is if you guys want to limit the number. I don't know. I'm just bringing it up because it's questions that have brought up here. So if there's.
Like for graduation parties?
Yeah, I mean, some people have collaborated with people on their block. They get the petition signed, they close the block, and everyone's great with it. So we're not from an administrative perspective, we're not going to pry into everything they're doing at the block party, but whether they fulfill the requirement. But if there is like a limit that you guys want to place on things, you know, an example would be, you know, some people have asked, well, can I have a block party once a month? Nice out. I want to close the street, let all the kids play Saturday or Sunday, whenever. We have no preference on this. I just want to make sure that while we're at this, just
I mean, I'm always going to err on the side of residents being able to get together and enjoy each other's company safely. And if that means that they want to do it in their street and it's their own block, and no one's really raising a fuss that also lives on that block. I mean, it takes a couple minutes to deliver a barricade. I would prefer no restrictions, but again, it seems like a response to a problem that hasn't come up.
I guess I'd be curious to know, then do we want to do how many does it take? Like right now, I don't know, does it take, I live on a street where you can't have them. How many people is there no limit now? Or do you just, if 2 people come forward, can they say we want to close? What, is there no limit? No required number, no threshold to meet to get a block party?
on the permit itself now, I want to say there's probably 20 tickets. And people are just advised yet.
To fill all the lines.
Yeah. I mean, some blocks, maybe they fill all the lines because maybe it's just a block.
But nobody's been ever said, no, you can't have one because you didn't fill out the lines.
Right. I have had one individual complain about a block party. Say, well, what if I don't want to? What if I don't agree? Well, they've gone through the process.
Sorry.
They've gone through the process and here's where we're at. You know, that's not the norm. You know, usually people do get together, but to your point, trustee Stork, and that's why I asked the second question. Does the committee desire to specify how many signatures are required? Some communities will say like half the block, you know, you count up all the households, some force. I didn't know if there was a preference here because we actually, you know, this community has a history of requiring the signatures. So it was one of the things to check in, like, oh, maybe we'll have strong thoughts about this. I wasn't sure. And then the second, you know, like just clarifying, like, want the majority of the block, just however you want us to administer that, we're happy to. But it's a question that hit the list.
So would you say with the current form and the 20 or so lines, I'm guessing you have to put a name and an address?
Right now, I believe it's name.
Because then you'd know if they were in the block.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe their address is also.
And so do you feel like that's appropriate? Is it working? Because I guess I'm not, part of me says, well, yeah, you should have at least half the people on your block who want to have your street closed. And the other part of me is like, well, if you've got 20, who wants to keep track of how many houses and addresses are in a block and figuring out what half is? That sounds like a nightmare for some street. Do you really want to go through and figure out how many are
valid.
You don't want to do that. So for that reason, I guess I would say stick with the form you've got and say you need to fill out all the lines.
Or just encourage them to fill it. I mean,
Encouraged to fill out each.
I don't know. There's a part of me that feels like getting signatures is just kind of silly. That if you're going to go through the motion of having a block party, you would have talked to folks on your block, and getting signatures seems silly until the situation arises where it's not,
Yeah.
and then it's a problem. But
Yep.
at this exact moment, it seems silly to me.
Yeah.
I don't think it seems like a bar too high. We'll split the vote. Now what are we going to?
Somebody
Well,
call Arndorfer. Where is he?
Yeah, well, I agree with you, right? At first it was like, God, I can't believe we were. Right? I mean, it was like a stunning thing. And then I started taking over that administrative clerk's office and I was like, well, I guess I kind of figure They do have it. But however you want to proceed. We don't have to keep it.
I think it's not a bad way to get the pulse of the neighborhood. You're going to close the street. It's kind of a big deal. It doesn't seem onerous. And did we figure out, did we have enough barricades? I know it was an issue at one point. We didn't think we had enough, and I think we were going to put more in the budget. Maybe that's a 2023 budget question.
My understanding that you're gonna
Because they would be free, right?
the barricade?
Yeah.
Yes. Wanted efficient.
For safety.
This is not, I mean, not a hill I'm willing to die on. So if you want to stick with signatures, I'm fine with that. It doesn't seem to have impeded a block party in the history of this village. So
They seem to be alive and well.
yes. Okay.
Okay.
I agree with trustee Stokenbrand.
So same amount of signatures that are. I'm a big process. So I'm gonna. If there's something that comes up, then maybe we'll.
Lovely.
Okay, that brings us to permit fees.
Did you want a motion item?
Emergency plans, do you want to discuss that as well?
Oh,
Oh, yes, thank you, Bart. So one of the other questions posed was, should emergency plans be included as a component of special event permit application? And this is my humble perspective. Residents nor people applying for permits are well skilled at emergency management. They need to be informed of them, and they need to know how we're going to respond collaboratively with them. But I feel that if someone does submit for a permit, that it should be our PD and collaborating on an agreed upon emergency operation. Because people just, by their nature, they're not necessarily thinking.
Can I have some clarification on an emergency operations plan and how it relates to? Yeah, just some clarification.
So our police department will sometimes want stage large vehicles at some enclosure, maybe not all, but on some. There's emergency weather plan. Go to the weather service. You on that. Tornado or place. There can be communication there. In some cases, there's one before you during the discussion, which is special event permit, the winter month. So at which point are we going to have that discussion of, is this actually going to happen? Is it not? So that everyone, more important for those, want to know the parameters, the people.
so this is only referring to the special event permit, not to the block parties.
Correct.
Yeah,
It's
I
a
would
presumption.
support. Sounds like that would be a little too much regulation for us.
Yes.
For a block party,
Yeah.
it's a big party. Yes, I think that if you're going to have something the size of, as an example, 3 Lions block party, there should be some communication between the village management and or DPW and or the police department and the applicant.
And so how onerous would this be for DPW or the fire department, or who would do it?
Well, typically in the past with the criteria said by the P and NSF and departments of the special event participants are all present to address what advice give, and then they need to be. If there's resources that they need to deploy, they're agreeing. Suggestion would be that a requirement.
That they agree to the deployment and any costs related then, or,
Mhm.
okay.
The majority, the thing that we see come up most frequently right now is our department saying, we want large vehicles blocking these intersections. And so they're key. Some just have barricades, but some they're being preparatory. But that's going to happen.
Right. Right.
And then with that, we require to know where the keys are for those vehicles if we would need to move them. So there's just the details are in that plan. I would imagine or hope that a template could be reused and just verified in the details of each event. But it has become pretty standard that it's been desired by those departments.
And as a responsible permitting agency, I think it's fair and in the best interest of the village.
So Middleton has banned elected officials and politicians from parades. Is this where we bring that up?
Oh,
No,
what is it?
no,
Elected officials have been banned from parades.
this falls outside
Politicians.
the agenda items.
Oh, okay.
No.
You
it's
guys
just-
can get me.
It's just an
clear on that.
aside.
Oh, okay. No, we did not review any of that with this memo. But you guys
The
are
world
at
we live in.
7:26.
Try again next year. Yep.
I would favor, so is there, I see there's a motion for, sorry, the motion about the attached ordinance repealing and replacing. Do you need a motion?
Yes,
You- If the chair is ready.
Chair's ready.
I move to recommend the attached ordinance repealing and replacing chapter 462 street festivals of the Shorewood Municipal Code and renaming it special events and residential block parties on a public way or public premises, subject to special event permit finalization with the changes discussed earlier.
I'll second the motion.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries 2-0.
Can I ask you? How do you want to, because they were still waiting on work with.
Yes, that's what
And we
had
can update
discussed
that on
in
the 19th in the
Yep.
memo. Yep.
Moving on to fees.
We need to go quickly. So Rebecca, do you want to walk us through this? The fees very quickly.
Barb, forgot to print off this memo. You have that in front of you, by chance? Thanks. Sorry, I
That's
have,
o-
I can't use my screen because it's taken up by the. Alrighty. Okay, at the last meeting, it was asked if additional fees were charged, to recoup the cost of police and public works. And then this item was deferred until, we had an opportunity to review some other North Shore municipalities. So attached in that is findings of the special event permit fees from the surrounding communities. And specific fees related to the Tour of America's Dairyland or the Criterium event. Coming forth, we have a recommended motion, which is to recommend to the village board for staff to increase, decrease, or maintain the special event permit fee in the amount of X. Right now, it's $100, but if increased or decreased, then we would apply that amount and to add it to a future board agenda for approval. As you can see on the back of this attachment, not everyone has a little bit different way of doing it. I doubt you want me to review each one.
Please don't. Nope.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with the fee. Now that I'm looking at what other communities do.
Besides the permit fee, we do bill back for public works and police security, right?
We are not doing that at this time. We have in the past. The village board has also in the past asked to take action on whether or not to require individual events to be charged. An example would be, first year I got here, there was no desire from the board to charge business improvement district events. But if a private business came in, such as Three Lions, they would in the past charge for police department services or public works department services because it was being applied for on behalf of a particular business. So that's, I think, where we get stuck a little bit. Some of the largest costs that we incur really occur with the criterion under the bid. 4th of July, which is the one that we promote, and then again, the feast, because it's a large section of Oakland Avenue. But we never have their Camp Bar, has shut down, that portion of Oakland for purposes of the Packer Party, Three Lions with the World Cup events. We have a new one that's going to be coming to at the next meeting for Rocktoberfest, which is the School of Rock. And then they're partnering with different people, on that particular block to close. So that's also been an item of discussion.
So right now administratively, you're making the call based upon precedent?
No, we have not.
Oh, you haven't?
When this started, there was discussion of, listen, we're going to evaluate, we're going to determine how this fee structure is going to work. And then we're going to move with it at that point in time. Because we'd hit the board meeting with a special event permit, and then it would become a discussion or debate at times at the board. When really, if I'm in your shoes, I just want to know how it's going to be processed and proceed.
So if we're closing Oakland Avenue and there are fees associated with the rerouting of county buses with signage and what have you, are all those costs borne by the county, or?
So,
does
no
that work?
parking signage. So the county does provide some limited rerouting signage, that I'm sure you've seen. Our Department of Public Works will be posting and some point posting no parking signage along the area of the route to make sure that the route is clear, for purposes of closure the next day. Because you could have people parking like a Saturday night, so we want to prohibit that so that the road is clear on Sunday for the road to close. So vehicles aren't moving in and out of that day. All of that signage is done by our Public Works Department, and that can be a considerable amount. And then there's also production signs itself.
Thoughts?
It
do you
looks like,
you want me to go
for the
first?
criterion, it looks like most of the communities charge. I don't know if I'm ready to, I'm inclined to make it a flat fee, but I think you have to, I think you have to charge back for police and EPW. And I would not want to put staff in the position of deciding who's, I think it has to be across the board.
I mean, at this point, I am in favor of as many opportunities for the community to get together as possible and make it as easy as possible for that to happen. I have yet to see massive budget constraints that would suggest that we have to charge back for DPW and SPD. That may change in the future. But for right now, I mean, it's not as though we're 10 years removed from the pandemic. We're a year-ish, maybe, depending on who you ask.
I don't
Yeah.
think that you're going to see a budget constraint. I think what you see is challenges in deployment for other competing services. So we'll spend, we're all hands on deck week leading up to criterion, after criterion, before feast, after the feast. So Public Works, all of our resources just get deployed to staffing for those, to prepare for those, to moving the barricades, to getting all of those things done. And then it just takes away from other services that would otherwise be occurring during that.
And I just think
Mhm.
the benefits outweigh the costs at this point. I mean, those are massive community events at a time where I would prefer to have as many massive community events as possible. And those are just the costs of doing business, in my mind, of a municipality.
I would disagree. I think that
I thought
think
you
that-
might.
I think that, they should pay, because these are people that would otherwise be doing something else. And it's not like we're discouraging you, but there's a cost to having an event in our village. And I think for not everybody goes to all of them. We hope many of them do, but it just doesn't seem it seems like a reasonable expense if you want to have an event in our village that, and we decide when they know part of their permit is they have to, a certain amount of security is necessary, Porta Johns, security, the keys, if you're going to park a vehicle in front of a street to make it extra safe. Who's going to keep track of the key? It seems to me a reasonable requirement.
Well, we're at 7:35.
I mean,
So-
Do you want a motion to defer that
we're gonna
part?
have to defer because we're not gonna agree.
Yeah.
Jim's gonna have to be the tiebreaker here. So
So I'll make a motion to defer action on a special event. I'm sorry, that's not the right one, is it? The special event permit fee, that's not it, is it?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is, okay.
second, all in favor of deferring?
Aye.
Motion carries. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourns at 7:35 PM.
To order at 7:42. All trustees, with the exception of trustee Arndorfer, are present. He is unavailable due to business. Is the meeting been publicly noticed?
The meeting has been properly noticed and posted according to law.
Great. Thank you in advance for everyone's time, talent, and patience this evening as we work through our business. Please be reminded when you come to speak into the microphone so that you loud enough or close enough so that you can hear yourself. And it might feel uncomfortable, but we have to have it for the recording. So you have to feel as uncomfortable as we do all the time. That means your family. All right, so item 4, special order of business. 4A, emergency medical dispatch project update. Leanne Charnot, Bayside, or Charnot, maybe, Bayside Communications and Chief Whitaker. Hi, Leanne.
You.
Oh, great, you have,
I have a mic, so hopefully you can hear me.
great.
Thank you, everybody. I'm Leanne Charnot. I'm the director at Bayside Communications Center, and I have with me Mandy Major. She's the deputy director. So we put together a presentation on EMD and what it's going to provide for the center and the communities. So next slide, please. Okay, so what is priority dispatch system? Basically, it's an international standard of protocol that we've selected to utilize in the dispatch center. The term that we're selecting is the medical priority dispatch system. There are other components to dispatch systems. You can also use one that's police related, but we are opting for the medical priority dispatch system. And again, what this is, it's a globally recognized set of standards and procedures that are aimed at providing critical support in emergency situations. So essentially, it's having the dispatchers screen calls to get the right help on the scene at the right time. Next slide. As you can see, it's utilized by 56,000 dispatchers. It's recognized internationally. The companies that we're choosing to use as priority dispatch, they were one of the originators of medical dispatching, and they've been around for 40 years. Next slide. So there's a lot of steps that we had to go through to get on board with EMD dispatching. One of them is that it had to be backed by our medical director, and obviously priority dispatch being around for a long time has a standard in the community that's well recognized. And as part of our screening process, all of our call takers are going through the certification process to essentially be the lifeline between the callers and getting the help to the scene. Next slide. So this gives a little bit of an idea of what our dispatchers are going through. Because there are such high standards that we have to meet as part of this medical dispatching, they're all required to be certified, which requires 5 days of remote training courses for them. Upon completion of the training courses, they're certified and they have to be recertified every 2 years. And then along the way, there are continual improvement benchmarks that we have to meet as a center. And one of that includes all of our call processing standards and all of our quality control components that goes along with this. Next slide. Okay, so I talked to you a little bit about how it involves a computer-based script to provide emergency dispatchers so that they ask a series of questions and guide the calls in the right direction. Included in that script are pre-arrival instructions that dispatchers ask. And then with those, depending on how they answer the questions, we're going to determine which help we're going to send to the scene. And oftentimes we're staying on the line, asking more information of these callers. So one of the things that's really unique about emergency medical dispatching is currently in our current state in dispatch, when we take calls, and we process 120,000 phone calls every year. So when we process these calls and it's medical in nature, there's nothing currently that we do with those calls other than stay on the line in the caller. And we provide them basic things like turn on your light, unlock your front door. There's not a lot of information we can provide as far as pre-arrival. Going forward with EMD, one of the really great components of this that we're all really excited to bring on board is that we can screen these calls. We can ask a lot more detailed medical information. So we're still sending the help to the scene to get them there quickly, but we're also triaging that call so we can update the units along the way. And then that might route our call in another direction. So we're providing medical information to the callers. And next slide. So this just gives a breakdown of how the call comes in, essentially. So we're going to obtain the location, the nature of the call. We're going to begin our screening protocol. We're going to identify the chief complaint. We're going to work through some of the things that we might identify, such as the breathing or the level of consciousness, the age. That's going to walk our call takers through different protocol cards. It is computer-based and we have actual physical cards. So we do have the ability to walk through these cards. Then, like I said, we're sending out help to the scene while we're doing this, gathering this information. And then we can also update them along the way. And it might entail sending other response units along the way if something changes in the call. And next. So this is an example of what our physical protocol card would look like from the beginning. Now keep in mind, there's a lot of them and this is just one. So we have to go through a series of questions, beginning with what I talked to you about is what exactly is going on and what's the location. So this shows you what some of the steps that our dispatchers would go through. And then that might route them to a different area depending on whether the caller is reporting that the subject is breathing or not, if they're reporting heart or chest pains. So there's a lot of different paths we can take that's backed by this protocol. Next. One of the really unique things about priority dispatch is they have a lot of diagnostic tools that we can use along the way. This just gives you a sample of one called the stroke diagnostic tool. So just remember, in our current state, we couldn't provide this information, but going forward, there's a lot of tools that we can use to identify strokes. And this gives you an example of how we can determine that in 27 seconds and oftentimes pick up twice as many strokes than medics on the scene. Next slide. Okay, so along with EMD comes a public education component. And this is going to be something new for the communities, but we are providing that top level service and getting help on the scene. But one of the things that we're going to put out in our social media campaign is as we're processing these calls, we're going to remind our callers to remain calm. It's going to seem like there's a lot of questions that we're asking, and it's because of those protocol cards that I showed you the example of. We're trying to gather the best information that we can to prepare our first responders that are coming to the scene. And in essence, we're triaging the call along the way. So we might escalate it, we might upgrade it a little bit, or we might relay different information to them. So it's important that our call takers know that they have to remain calm, answer all of our questions. It may involve that they stay on the line a little bit longer, but help is being sent along the way. So that is EMD in a nutshell. I'd be happy to entertain any questions anybody has. We are excited to roll it out on September 21st and 22nd are our go live dates, and you'll see more about it on social media.
Yeah, are there any ways that we as community leaders can help you with the rollout?
Yes, so we are preparing a social media campaign that we plan on sharing with each of the municipalities, and I would love it if you could share it on your Facebook pages. And we also are attending, if there's any village events that we can attend. We've attended National Night Out, if village picnics, any opportunity for us to speak to the public. It gives us that firsthand information we can provide to them. We're making brochures as well, so a lot of information will be forthcoming.
Thank you. Any questions from the board or from the public? Trustee Stokbrand.
So while this dispatcher is getting all this information, are the people in the med unit able to hear it so they know?
No, well, they won't be able to hear the information, but as we're answering those questions, each of our responses is going to be notated in the call, and that call feeds into the computer in the rig. So they would be able to see our responses. Anything pertinent or safety related, we would relay over the radio right away.
Yes, sir.
Well, any first aid
Yes, so great point, and I didn't bring that up. We are able to walk through things such as CPR instructions, which in the past, like I said, we couldn't do. We could just keep the caller on the line and let them know help is on the way. We can provide CPR instructions. We can walk through that stroke diagnostic tool, which is a series of questions and tests that we would run. It depends on the circumstances, but there are a lot of different protocol that we can utilize. Anything from a subject that might be bleeding profusely, we can direct the person on how to handle that crisis as well.
Well, thank you very much and good luck with your work.
Thank you. Thank
And
you very
thanks for your
much.
service to the North Shore.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to 4B, we have consideration of support for Milwaukee County Department of Transportation Safer Streets for All grant proposal. There is a memo in our packet that shares the background on this and what we are being asked to consider tonight. Keeping in mind that this is informative in nature, the county can move ahead without our support, but collaborative grants, overall support, make a stronger proposal with new guidelines.
I would do the lapel mic. The other one can be a more challenge to get the voice.
Okay, can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
Great. My name is Donna Brown Martin. I'm the director for Milwaukee County Department of Transportation. And I want to thank President McKay and everyone for allowing me to just take a couple of minutes of your time to talk about our grant. The federal government has put out infrastructure bill funding, and there's a lot of different grants that are out and available. But what we're looking to apply for is Safe Streets for All. And we're looking at it from a multi-jurisdictional standpoint, looking at what I call complete communities. So rather than just looking at it from the standpoint of one community, each community within the 19 municipalities within Milwaukee County, each submitting their own separate grant, Milwaukee County submitting one grant for planning purposes. And we've done this before, and we've been successful in that area. This past spring, we submitted quite quickly an application for transportation alternatives projects program. And it was primarily focused for reckless driving, looking at reckless driving, how we make streets a little bit safer, how we talk and speak to communities and neighborhoods about what they know about poor driving in their neighborhoods, how people are walking, pedestrian safety, bicycle safety, and so forth. That grant was about $250,000, and it's primarily for focus group work. So what we will be doing, and we just got the notification that we were awarded in August, beginning of August. What we'll be doing is my team will be pulling around, and we will be working with a public outreach group to help us go to each community. And 17 of them signed up to participate in our effort. And we're going to be talking to neighborhoods about, what do you know about reckless driving in your area? Are you concerned with any, intersections that are considerably dangerous? You think there's considerable amount of crashes and so forth? We'll take that data. In most cases, we actually have the data about the intersections, but it doesn't do us any good if we come in and say, hi, we're Milwaukee County, we're here to help. It helps if we come in and we say, tell us about your neighborhood. Tell us about where you live. How do you want people to be able to walk back and forth? Utilize your bike paths, utilize your sidewalks, utilize your streets on a daily basis, a seasonal basis, and so forth. And then we can pull that information together and begin to lay out a map what's going to be helpful and make those interconnections between county highways as well as state trunk highways, because we all have those connections through our communities. The other thing that is really important is safe roads for all is a planning and an implementation tool. You can only get the money for doing any improvements if you have an action plan. And in order to have an action plan, you've got to do the outreach to your communities to make sure that you're pulling in their input into that process. So what Milwaukee County wants to do is they're starting out with asking for $1 million. We'll split it. The county will take half and the other half will go to the 19 communities. Now, the way that this works is we know that some communities will not want to participate. They're not completely interested in this process. But that doesn't prevent us from sitting down with those communities, working in the information, finding out what's important for their communities, for their neighborhoods, what makes them safe, how we might deal with some of the traffic issues, even though they determine for themselves that they're not going to participate. We're not excluding anyone. We're going to continue to work, and we're hoping that as they see all of us, you know, whether it's Shorewood, whether it's Oak Creek, Franklin, St. Francis, Cudahy, whoever, City of Milwaukee, as we're working together to pull these ideas together and map out a plan, that they will stay in the process, regardless of whether or not they contribute or whether or not they participate in the event. From our standpoint, from Milwaukee County, we want to keep that door open, because in the end, we all benefit if we're all working together for this. And that's one of the key components of the application process, is that they're looking for a multi-jurisdictional approach. So if this is not necessarily a full region, but it is countywide that we're applying this to. And hopefully there'll be pockets of dollars. Each community can come in and say, of the pot of money that's available for the communities to participate in this, we will maybe take $40,000, $50,000 to do our individual plan and mesh that with the county's overall plan. So we're not trying to do plans for you. There's a pot of dollars so that each individual community can do their own plans. And we will work with them to incorporate that into the countywide effort. So that's the information. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Trustee Kudo.
This sounds wonderful. The only question would be, of the 500,000, let's say you get the grant, of the 500,000 between the 19 municipalities, if your municipality doesn't participate in the program, are they still able to come in on the back end and
Yes.
apply for the grants?
Yes, the grants are wide open. That's the way that we're keeping them. We'd like to make sure that the communities may have some skin in the game. But we also know that some communities are just not going to do it. This only works if everyone participates in the process. And so after the fact, if they come in and they decide, you know, this really did turn out to be pretty good. I've talked to my peers and my brethrens, and they're doing pretty well in this. They can still come in on the back end. What's important is that they're not part of the plan and they want to get some of the money for the implementation in the next phase of the application process. They have to be part of the plan. And so we'll leave that door open as long as we can before we submit for the next phase in this effort, which is implementation. And that'll be 2 to 3 years out.
And then will Milwaukee County DOT it'd be administering the other half of the $1 million grant?
Well, we're going to sit down and we're going to pull together an advisory committee. All those who are interested in that process need to be part of the decision-making process. It's not for MCDOT to be the sole person or the arbiter over who gets the funding and how much funding they get. It's based on what you come to us with in terms of the need, and if we have enough of those dollars available so that all 19 are still able to participate.
Great. Thank you. This sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. This sounds fantastic. And my only question is, how can we find more opportunities to do things like this? Because I
Together.
think that, to the extent that the county and as many munis as possible are working together to fight for those federal dollars, we're going to be a lot more successful if we can work together. So I think this is great.
Well, I will say at the ICC and the opportunities that I've had to work on the dismantling barriers group, the leadership is there at the county to seek out these collaborative grants. And so we're really in good. I don't think DOT is going to be the only department, and I think it's not going to be the last time either. So I'm pleased about that. Other questions, comments?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
There's no further questions.
Yes, please.
I move for the Village of Shorewood to be included on the list of municipalities in support of Milwaukee County Safer Streets for all regional grant application.
I'll second.
All right. Motion by trustee Kudo, second by trustee Moore Baldoff. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much, Director Martin, for your extra time tonight. All right, moving on to the next item is consider acceptance of funds and waiver approval for Friends of Shorewood Nature Preserve Vegetation Survey. So Chris Anderson, Assistant Village Manager. We have a memo in our packet with all the supporting documentation that's been requested. So due to our procurement policy, typically we would RFP we would get 3 quotes administratively and then proceed. In this case, because the group did work with a vendor to develop this proposal, and this is the funding that they fundraised for this specific proposal. They are coming to us with a request to waive so that they can do a sole source contract. And on behalf of the Shorewood Nature Preserve group, we have, remind me of your name
My name is Shep Davis,
and your address, please.
3940 North Ridgefield Circle, Shorewood, 53211.
Thank you.
And may it please the board, I'd like to just take a minute to explain what the Friends of the Shorewood Nature Preserve is and what we're hoping to accomplish today. What we are is a group of people who love a piece of property that is owned by Shorewood, and we seek to find ways to improve it. But before we can make any recommendations or any requests or seek any other funding, we need to know what we have. And so we worked with a company, Merrick, that has worked in the village many, many times, many projects, and got a small budget proposal to basically assess what we have on the property. And we have now submitted a bid to the Shorewood Foundation to help pay for that. The Shorewood Foundation prefers, to have the grant requestor have a little skin in the game, use that term again. So we reserved over $2,000 or exactly $2,000 for the FSNP, which is the Friends of Shorewood Nature Preserve. We have already exceeded that fundraising. So the bottom line is, assuming we go ahead with this proposal, which we need the village to be a contractor for, it's going to be free to the village. The village will not spend $1. And this isn't a situation where actual construction is going to be done. FSNP understands that if we are going to propose actual work, we need to get competitive bids. That's the rules for municipalities It makes a lot of sense. We support that. This, however, is the evaluation stage. And rather than, I would like to have the board consider, rather than applying a procurement policy, consider this a gift. And I know unfortunately, the current board does not have a gift policy. I'm not critical of that fact. It's just the reality. But know that no funds will need to come from Shorewood for us to get this work, to know what kind of trees, what kind of invasives, what kind of the property, the layout, where we're seeing erosion, those sorts of things we think are worthy of a waiver of the 3 bid requirement. It's a small proposal, and so the burden of getting 2 more bids would actually be quite excessive under these limited circumstances. It is therefore our request that that procurement policy be waived for this gift, and we be allowed to proceed again at no cost to the village whatsoever. That is
Thank
all
you.
I have to say, and I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone may have.
Okay, so to be clear, so we're asked to take 2 actions tonight, and it can be done at the same time, but we're accepting the gift, accepting the donation, and then deciding whether to waive the procurement policy for this instance. So those 2 things can be taken together. They can be taken separately. You can approve one and not the other. You can deny both. I don't know why we would not accept a gift, but I just wanted the board to know procedurally what is up at this point. So questions for Mr. Davis? If not, oh, yes,
I'm just ready to make a motion.
great, go for it.
So I move the Village of Shorewood to accept the donation from the Shorewood Foundation, the amount of $7,000, 850.
Oh,
He just was clearing his throat, and I think I might
Sorry.
have been directing my microphone in his direction.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry about the
Shorewood Foundation, the
interruption.
amount of $7,000, 856 and 59 cents to fund the vegetation survey project at the Shorewood Nature Preserve. I also move to approve a waiver to the Friends of the Shorewood Nature Preserve from securing additional quotes for the scope of work listed in the proposed vegetation survey from Merrick Landscaping.
Second.
A point of information, can we make, no, aren't they 2 separate motions?
we can break it into 2 separate motions. So is it friendly amendment? Could we take it separately?
Yes.
All right, so you're going to make a motion to accept the donation from the Friends of the Shorewood Nature Preserve?
Yes.
I'll still second.
Okay, so you accept the friendly amendment? Mhm.
I just had some concerns here that I have communicated to a couple of members of the group, and I've been in email contact with them. My biggest concern with this is, first of all, I lived next to the Nature Preserve for many years, and it is a treasure, and I want to thank you because it's something that needs attention, and I always felt like it was the little corner that Shorewood forgot. And so I think this is a wonderful thing you've done, and I applaud your inspiration to do this and to organize. And it's a wonderful, positive thing. But because it is public land and it's a donation, I have concerns about transparency, accountability, and oversight. I know part of this includes a land management plan. And I wonder also a trail design. Without having input from, we have residents who live near there that I know are very concerned about. They live in the condos north and probably south and west of the nature preserve. And they're very concerned about the bluff because they've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so I guess one of my concerns is, at what point do we get everybody together in the room to talk about what happens to the Shorewood Nature Preserve? So the Friends have come up with a plan that includes land management and trail design and volunteer training. Where does staff come in? Where does the Parks and Public Spaces Committee come in? I'm also concerned about a no bid contract. Merrick is already getting paid in our accounts receivable today, they're getting paid for almost $10,000. So the good news is they're apparently a valued contractor. It's like, we call the same plumber and the electrician every time. But I'm spending my own money. I'm not spending village money or private donations, and I'm not dealing with public land. And so I have a concern that there was no bid made, because I don't really see a downside to getting bids. And I called today and I came up with 2 names of companies who would be happy to bid. I know one for sure said he'd bid. Getting bids is really very easy. And it seems to me that the minimum that you would want to do, because then we know I've had Merrick do work on my own personal property. I would get them again through a bid process. That's not the point. The point is, if someone comes up to you and says, I've got a great plan for Triangle Park, I want to put in X, Y, Z, and I've got the plan and I've got the money, and you just have to let me accept it. Is this the way we want to go about doing it? I'm concerned that it's not being done more collaboratively. We're presented with something that's all done and it's all paid for. And there's a no bid process.
Mhm.
And I think in the interest of, in public interest, we owe it to ourselves to just at least get a couple of other bids. Maybe Merrick will be the lowest, maybe it'll be the best, but you don't know what you don't. And so I don't see an urgency. I've tried to find out the urgency here, why we couldn't get more bids. I was told that this was more expedient. And I guess I just think because it's public space, we have to do a little more due diligence. And I would rather they just get more bids. And I did provide them with.
So, so procedurally, that's great. So it sounds like that would be a no vote for you for the motion that's on the table, because we do have a motion on the floor. So we need to see this through. And I think that Mr. Davis, I can see that you want to respond. Just keep in mind, you don't have to, when we're in deliberation, we kind of just go around and see where the board's at. And I guess I'd like to hold any comments, because it's not your responsibility to debate or, to resolve.
Well, all I wanted to point out is that to your concerns, there will be no land management component of this process. There will be no trail redesign. Nothing is actually being done. We know we would have to submit bids, proposals, multiple quotes for the actual work to be done. All that's happening here is to try to figure out what we got right now. And the urgency is based on the fact that nothing has been done on this land in so many years. My kids are now 32 and 30, and they were going to this nature preserve when they were 5 and 6 and 7, and it's the exact same. And it's almost like the trails are cut by people walking them, not by any design. We just want to figure out what we've got, and then we can make proposals, which then I agree should be entirely transparent, should be subject to the 3-bid requirement. Again, this is just an evaluation to try to get something moving that hasn't been moving in a very long time. That's all I have to say.
Appreciated. So I'd like to hear from the trustees, go around once and just see where we're at with the motion on the floor.
Thank you for all of that. I can appreciate your energy, and I love that spirit of just getting things done. Typically, when you have things have to go through 5 different committees and you've got 20 different opinions, it can take 30 years for anything to get done. So I appreciate your energy and your passion in getting this done, and I couldn't agree with you more. And that's why I'd be in favor of waiving this policy for this particular action tonight.
So the motion on the floor is to accept the donation, just
Yes.
to be clear. So other thoughts about accepting the donation? Are there other concerns? Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a vote on the motion on the floor, which is the motion is to accept the donation as presented by the Shorewood Nature Preserve. Yeah, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
So motion carries 5-1 to accept the donation from the Friends of the Shorewood Nature Preserve. So, and right. So sorry, thank you very much. So the next item is to consider waiver of the bid requirement of the procurement policy. So the information has been presented. At this time, is there a motion to either waive or not waive? Trustee Ursink?
So I read it before. You want me to read it again?
Yes, please.
Okay. I move to approve a waiver to the Friends of the Shorewood Nature Preserve from securing additional quotes for the scope of work listed in the proposed vegetation survey from Merrick Landscaping.
Second.
Okay, discussion. I believe trustee Stokbrand shared her concerns around waiving this requirement. Other trustees? Could you speak a little closer?
I think just turn up his volume in the thing. You can keep talking. I mean, we can hear you.
Just very briefly, I think, just the fact that it's coming here is enough of a check on any.
Any additional comments?
I'm in favor of waiving it. What I would say is if we were using even a penny of public dollars, I would be voting against this. But it's, foundation money as well as money raised by constituents to better their own community. And I have no problem participating in it.
Trustee Moore Baldoff, anything to add?
No, I agree. I appreciate the work of the folks who care about this and are, helping it move forward. And I'm very comfortable waiving the bid requirements in this situation.
All right, so with that, we will take a vote. All those in favor of the motion as it stands, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries 5-1. Thank you very much. You've gotten past this hurdle.
Thank you very much. And I want to say it's not me, it's the Friends of Shorewood Nature Preserve. The
Absolutely.
other members have worked extremely hard too.
Well, thank you guys
And
for
I-
everything you're doing down there. Appreciate it.
And I do think I like what trustee Stokbrand said, that image of everybody getting in the room together. I look forward to when that happens because I'm sure there'll be lots of that moving forward.
Actually, I think that the neighbors will be pleased if we try to reduce erosion. I will.
We'll find out. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you for hearing us.
Mhm. All right, moving on to the next item, we have Southeast Area Combined Sewer Improvements Project Update and Consideration of Green Infrastructure Enhancements, project meeting number 8. So presenting this evening, we have, just introduce yourself and your title.
Hi, I'm Emily Roundtree with Strand. Thank you to the village for having Phil and I here to present an update on the Southeast Area Combined Sewer Improvements Project. So as you know, it's been a long time coming. We're in the design phase currently, so we just kind of wanted to give an update where things were at, kind of how this transitions into construction. So go ahead. So as an update, as a quick reminder, the goal of the project is to increase that level of protection against basement backups in the southeast area of the combined sewer area. So a couple things I'll be going through today, going through phasing and scheduling of the project, what the project will involve as far as updates to existing infrastructure, what the roadway typical sections will look like, some impacts to street trees, as well as street lighting, and then I'll go through any questions that you guys have at the end. So project will be completed in a couple of different phases and over several years. As you probably have noticed, the first phase is going on, currently being done by MMSD, and that's the Edgewood Interceptor. So currently slated to be done by the end of this year, potentially into a little bit of next year. And then after that will be the village's portion of the project, which includes phase 1. Phase 1, which is highlighted in yellow on the picture, includes North Maryland Avenue all the way from Edgewood up to Menlo, as well as Stratford from Maryland to Downer. And then the last piece will be Shepherd Avenue. So all that is slated for construction next year. Second phase, which is all of North Downer Avenue, all the way from Edgewood, all the way up to just shy of Capitol Drive, as well as Newton. So that'll be slated for 2024, bidding out in 2023. The third phase we have currently as noted in green, which would be the combined sewer lining part of the project. So Phil and I had met with a lining company kind of to get their feel for how this lining would go. And one of their recommendations was to bid it as a separate contract. So rather than lumping it in with the combined sewer part of it, just because it's so specialized, their recommendation was to make it a third contract to get better, more competitive bids with it being such a specialized item. And that could actually follow pretty close after phase 2 is done. They recommended that it be done in the winter in order to keep temperature down when they're going through the curing process for that. So that could be winter of 2024, 2025. And then the last part of that would be done by WISDOT, and that would be the Lake Drive part of that in 2026. So I'm going to dive in specifically to phase 1, as that's the one coming up next year, and focus more in that phase 1. So schedule moving forward for that phase 1. So we're anticipating that award of construction contract would be in December at the village board meeting. And then notice to proceed given once all contracts are executed in January 2023. And then anticipated construction start would be theoretically as soon as the contractor could, get their materials and hit the ground running. And then we are anticipating that substantial completion would be the end of next year in that November range, with final completion following in spring, just for any remaining punch list items, turf restoration, touch-ups. So as I said, a couple of updates as far as the existing infrastructure that's going to be updated as part of this project. So what you see in the pictures right now, that's Maryland, Stratford, and Shepherd. Again, part of phase 1. So there's going to be about 2,800 linear feet of water main replaced as part of the project. And that includes all lead service replacements along those same corridor. So that can be anything from replacement of the lead services in public right of way, on the private side, could be both of them. So at the end of the project, there shouldn't be any more lead services left within the project limits. Existing infrastructure updates also include 1,600 feet of relief sewer. So that's the 48-inch sewer that will operate only in dry conditions, or that will operate in dry conditions only when necessary. During high flood events, it would be utilized. And then in addition, 2,500 feet of combined sewer. So that'll be 24-inch and 18-inch on Shepherd, a little bit on Maryland, and a little bit on Stratford. Project will also include manhole and inlet replacements. So all inlets on the project, as well as their leads, will be replaced, just to update any failing infrastructure within those project limits too. Make sure they're done ahead of road reconstructions. We've got 20 curb ramps within phase 1 that will be brought up to current ADA standards. And then with that, once all the utilities are in, it'll be a full road reconstruction with full curb and gutter replacement. So as you can see on the next slide, this will be our proposed roadway typical section. So this will be what ends up getting reinstalled. All lane widths will go back as existing, so we're not changing any of those widths in phase one. So it includes 5 inches of asphalt over 10 inches of base with brand new curb and gutter. With that, none of the existing sidewalk is planned to be replaced. The only areas where a sidewalk will be replaced will be in areas directly impacted by utility replacements, as well as those ADA updates. And then with that, the terrace slopes will be graded from the existing sidewalk to the new curb and gutter. So this slide, so proposed relief sewer location required identification of existing utility constraints. So I know it's a lot of colors. It's essentially, this is kind of the process we went through in order to identify, where does this large 48-inch sewer go within utility corridors that are already packed full of existing utilities. As you can see, the different colors represent different existing utilities within the Maryland and Stratford corridors. There is very limited space. So in those 2 areas, and specifically Stratford west of Prospect, we were very limited in the locations that it could go. So I wanted to bring that up. As you can see, the 2 main thoroughfares for this relief sewer would be on the west side of Maryland in the terrace, and then on Stratford on the south side of the road in the terrace. So with that relief sewer needing to go in the terrace, that will essentially require the contractor to remove those street trees directly impacted by the utility installation. So as you can see on this figure, the green trees represent all of the existing trees within the project corridor, specifically on Maryland and Stratford. Shepherd does not have any specific tree removals related to utility installations. That's why it's not shown up here. So as you can see on the west side of Maryland, south of Stratford, and then on the south side of Stratford, in between Maryland and Prospect, are where those trees would be impacted. There are 19 trees. Of the 19 trees, 7 of them are ash trees. And so with that, it would also be, once those trees are removed, there would be replacement trees as well. So we've been working with Stuart in forestry in order to get his recommendations on street tree replacements. The second thing that would be impacted because of the location of the relief sewer in the terraces would be the street lighting. So the street lighting noted in pink are the street lights that are directly impacted again by the utility installation. And in talking with our electrical engineer, he felt that the contractor, as they're working through, could install temporary conduit so that it wouldn't take the entire circuit offline during the installation. It would just be each street light would go down by the time they're actually passing that with the sewer. And then the remaining light poles shown on there in red are the light poles as designated by Village DPW as needing to be replaced in order to bring those light poles up to current village standard. And all of those red ones would be day replacements. So they would be able to be taken down and put back up within the same day. So just to summarize, we went through the phasing and scheduling, specifically focusing on phase 1, which will be going out for bid in December for construction in 2024, as well as updates to existing infrastructure, roadway typical sections, and then impacts to street trees, street lighting, and then a quick update on the opinion of probable construction cost. So I know Phil had presented to the board last July. Construction costs at that time were about 13.5 million. We've got current costs at about 15 million right now. We did add, per discussions with DPW, Downer originally only went from Stratford up to Shorewood. The limits were extended. So now they go from Edgewood all the way up to Capitol, in order to not leave little sections of Downer, as well as attributed to construction cost inflation. So with that, I can wrap up the presentation and open it for any questions.
Well, thank you very much. My first response is that's a really high level of service, during the construction, and a lot of care and minimal, I guess, trying to mitigate the impact to the residents as it's eventually a good thing, but while it's going on, it will be an inconvenience. So appreciate that. Other comments, Trustee Kudo?
This may be way too in the weeds, so tell me if it is, but I have a specific question about the curb ramps.
Mhm.
So I was fortunate enough, along with Trustee Stokebrand, to do a walk, pedestrian sort of analysis with the Shorewood Senior Resource on a number of different streets throughout the village. And if I learned anything, it is that all curb ramps are not equal or the same. Can you talk to us about what they'll look like, or you can tell me this is way too early for this?
No, that's a good question. And fortunate enough, most of Shorewood's curb ramps, you guys have pretty wide right of ways. Currently, the curb ramps are laid out nicely. They're not compacted. Some more urbanized areas have pretty close quarters in which you have to work for ADA compliant curb ramps. Shorewood's fortunate enough that you guys have a lot of space to work with in order to update to ADA standards. So as far as the horizontal layout, so it'll look pretty much the same horizontally. Probably the biggest change that you'll see is the landings, which would essentially be the two curb ramps come up at the corner, and then that's the landing. In most cases, that has to come down in order to meet ADA standards. So a lot of times the impacts to that involve having to grade up a little bit onto people's corner properties in order to tie that back in.
And then, this is really, but are you in a position to discuss materials? And I ask because when we did the walking tour, there were a lot of curb ramps that were brick that were sort of not ideal.
Yep.
Versus sort of a poured concrete or, the yellow bumpy thing. I don't even know what they're called. Right. Like, I am clearly not an engineer. So, or a construction. So, any idea what they would be made out of, or?
Yep. So they would just be the traditional concrete. And I believe Shorewood does yellow detectable warning. No, natural. Okay, so
Which I
just
would agree
natural.
with.
So natural detectable warning fields. AKA bumpy things.
I mean, again, I sound like a child, but
No.
I get to ask the question.
Yep.
Any questions from the trustees? And then I'll go to the board, to the public.
So we don't like our streetlights because they're old and decrepit, and we don't want them replaced the way they are. Is there anything, there's nothing we can do about updating our streetlights at this time in this area?
That's part of a larger comprehensive review, which Fran is also doing separate from this project. But the reference that she makes to streetlights here is replacement of the deteriorating poles.
Oh,
As a matter of practice, for the last 10 to 15 years, we have always replaced cabling when we're doing road reconstruction. That will be done here as well. They've identified specific poles for replacement due to deteriorating conditions.
But any work that we do in this project in phase 2, in phase, I guess, 4, the Lake Drive project, any of that work would be compatible with the recommendation that is forthcoming related to the comprehensive review of the streetlights.
So if we decide we want to go with a different street light pole in this upgrade,
I wouldn't recommend that
and why?
because then you'll be replacing 3,000 poles.
Right, but I mean, if we're looking to the future and, you know, I'm just saying, if we want something, I would guess now this seems to be
I would not recommend that. The concrete poles, while perhaps not the most attractive pole, are absolutely the most durable and most economical.
okay, thank you.
Trustee Ursink.
And just from my understanding, it's not really the poles that are the biggest issue. It's the conduit, it's the wiring, it's everything within and around the poles.
It seems like point taken that the lighting will be, it's not going to go back just as exactly it was. Yes, sir. If you don't mind, come to the microphone and then say your name, spell your last name and your address, please.
Hi, my name's Mitchell Opping. I live, AUPING. I live at 4512 North Larkin Street. So I was wondering if there's any desire to include what we had just discussed earlier with the Department of Transportation Safer Streets in with this project, to not just build it the way it currently is, but to build it better with something like continuous sidewalks or raised intersections, if something like that would be desirable.
Unfortunately, the ship has sailed on that, I believe, right? Because that was that conversation we had about Edgewood, right?
I think there are limited opportunities in phase 1, but certainly in the next presentation that relates to the green infrastructure installations, you're going to hear a little bit more talk about opportunities that we may have in phase 2 with Downer Avenue.
So, but to your point, yes, those questions have come up, and then sometimes what we run into, and I'd be happy to have coffee with you or something, is the sort of the tension between liking our trees and liking bike lanes. And a lot of times trees and bike lanes, they don't go so well together in our community for the size of it is. That's just a high level.
Well, I guess I wasn't so much talking about the bike lanes. But
Right, but some of those other improvements and things like that can come in, but it doesn't mean that they're ruled out.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you.
And if you have any follow-up questions, please just send an email and we can talk more. Thanks. So other questions from the public, from the board? All right, and you do not need any, this was an update only.
Correct.
Great, so we can move on to the next item, which is the assessment of green infrastructure.
So we've been working with Sigma. So Paul's going to help present our green infrastructure part of the project.
Thank you. I'm Paul Emig, senior engineer with the Sigma Group, and I led the green infrastructure alternatives analysis that I'll be presenting here for you. Next slide. So tonight, what we want to do is present the project alternatives that we've reviewed. And the purpose of this analysis for green infrastructure, and the project is kind of multi-pointed here to enhance stormwater quality runoff. It's to provide a quality project that's both purposeful and high quality and serves a benefit, and also to stay within time and budget constraints. The project area that we looked at is the same as what Emily just presented. Phase 1 being Maryland, Stratford and Shepherd, and then phase 2 being Downer Avenue from Edgewood to Capitol. We've included a little section of Menlo at Downer, and then Newton east of Downer. So project scope that's been completed to date, we've reviewed the existing project conditions, which have included drainage patterns, existing utilities, trees, landscaping, driveways, sidewalks, bus stops. And if you think back to Emily's presentation that she showed with the colored maps that showed the existing utilities that kind of litter some of the corridors that highlights some of the challenges that we have with implementing green infrastructure in those areas. The remaining portions of the project scope that have been completed so far will be in the next coming couple slides that I'll talk about, which include the evaluation of the green infrastructure alternatives and also budgetary costs. So again, the goal of green infrastructure is to improve stormwater runoff quality. And there's that's done by reducing solids and particulates as they run off. And there's two primary methods for doing that. The first is prevention and the second is treatment. The left side of the slide here where we talk about pavement reduction, that's a way that we can prevent those solids from running off with the stormwater. You know, by particulates and solids and things like phosphorus tend to be most prevalent in stormwater runoff when it's from pavement. So we can look at things like reducing pavement by, you know, if you had a multi-lane highway, you start taking lanes away, that's a significant reduction of pavement. On Downer Avenue, you know, there's through lanes, there's parking lanes. We can look at removing parking lanes for short stretches, long stretches. So one alternative would be basically to eliminate, you know, blocks or the entire length of a parking lane. Or for example, in what's shown in this picture, would be doing a bump out where you're taking a portion, you know, it's a limited length, 30, 40, 50 feet. Typically, we would focus these at intersections. And one benefit that we have with reducing pavement, again, whether it's a short bump out or a long, you know, elimination of a lane, is you bring curb ramps closer towards the center of the street and you reduce the width of pavement that pedestrians, bicyclists have to negotiate when they're trying to cross. So it helps enhance safety by shortening that distance, reducing the amount of time that people need to be out in traffic. Another alternative is looking at bioinfiltration basins. You know, there's shallow basins where water runs off from the street, from the adjacent area, and filters through soil, stone, etc. And those provide the water quality. Real quick, going back, biofiltration basins, you've got different levels of plantings you can do. You can be very basic, or you can get, you know, real elaborate. The more elaborate you get with plantings, obviously the higher that drives their cost. Some other alternatives we took a look at, tree filter boxes on the left side. Basically, it's a big box that goes underground. They can be made out of plastic, concrete. There's various things that they can be constructed out of. Typically, we see those in large concrete plazas outside, you know, a downtown area, something where there is no really green areas. And what the filter box does is it allows water to be stored in an aggregate or a soil media to help trees grow. And again, it filters and stores some water. For this project, we have a fair amount of street trees out there. There's a lot of lawns and terraces, and, you know, with the existing utilities, tree filter boxes didn't exactly present as a favorable alternative. On the right, permeable or porous pavement. There's different types of porous pavement that you can do. I know Sigma has designed porous paver alleys in the village. They've been implemented, and I know the village has a number of paver alleys. You know, you can do pavers, you can do porous asphalt, porous concrete. So you can have different surface treatments for what the surface is going to look like, but they all essentially function the same, where water, you know, runs off the ground through the pavement into aggregate, you know, stone that's underneath it where it's stored, and those solids and the particulates filter out and provide the water quality. Couple other alternatives that can be looked at are underground detention. Underground detention tends to have a large footprint, either in depth or in length. Typically not great in roadways just because of how much space they take up. And, you know, going back again to Emily's slide with the existing utilities that are out there, there's just not a lot of opportunities for that. There's a number of alternatives that can be looked at, like the picture that's up there on the right is a filter system where you install filters inside catch basins. There's settlement chambers and swirl systems and a whole bunch of other things that can be implemented. Those tend to have high install costs, and while they're effective, the big drawback is they tend to have high maintenance costs because they require frequent cleaning, replacement of filters, etc. And for public projects, tend to not be the most feasible solution. So why green infrastructure? Again, a summary: improves local drainage. It does slow down the release of water to some extent, but you know, for the large part, it cleans the water, improves water quality, enhances aesthetics, especially when you look at things like, you know, porous pavers. You know, they provide a visual, something that you can see. They can enhance pedestrian safety, like I stressed with the removal of pavement. And with biofilters and things like that, you get lots of planting opportunities, really enhance visually how things look. There's a number of opportunities out there for external funding to reduce the cost that the village might have to incur. There's various opportunities through MMSD. Corvius has grant opportunities. So, you know, moving forward, if the village authorizes these, you know, we would look at any available external funding mechanisms to reduce the potential cost for the village. And again, you know, most important, improving stormwater quality by reducing solids and things like phosphorus from the runoff. So here in this slide, a quick summary of what our recommendations are for the green infrastructure alternatives to implement. And again, in phase one, you know, looking at Maryland, Stratford and Shepherd, we're primarily looking at just biofiltration basins that would be located between the sidewalk and the curb and gutter. There's stretches of those roadways that have sufficient room, you know, outside of tree canopies, outside of, you know, existing utilities where we can implement them. And I guess that would be the biggest priority, and one of the things we'll be asking for coming out of today's meeting. Phase two, which is primarily Downer and Menlo and Newton adjacent to it, you know, we'd be looking at removal of pavement, and the little red boxes that are shown there are some examples that we felt would be great opportunities if we were going to do small little bump outs. Alternatively, again, we can look at removing entire parking lanes, whether that's for 1 block, 2 blocks, or the entire length of the road. There's a large green space in Menlo, just west of Downer, that provides a good opportunity for a large biofiltration basin. That one has some challenges, requires a little bit of, you know, roadway drainage improvements to get that to function to its maximum. But the other opportunity again on Downer, if the decision is to not go forward with full removal of parking lanes, we could go porous pavement in isolated locations. There's a one, you know, block long section there where we could still provide parking. It'd be under porous pavement, still get a lot of water quality out of that. So the next slide here, we've got our estimated costs and for implementation of construction. You know, these are, we've gone back to 2017 and, you know, through last year, a variety of paver projects that we've looked at, biofiltration projects that we've implemented locally, including, you know, the alleys in Shorewood here, Village of Whitefish Bay biofilter. So we've looked at costs. We've tried to account for recent inflation and fluctuations in the market, and have presented our estimate of the costs here. And again, we've broken them out where the top four there are biofiltration, again, focused in this phase 1 section. And with that, that pretty much wraps it up. So I'm available for any questions you have.
Okay, the one question that I am going to have is about the motion and the staff recommendation. And I'm wondering if we could just take that first. And where I'm coming from is, it's funny, it feels counterintuitive to identify opportunities for green infrastructure and then not recommend them. So help us understand that.
I can certainly do that. As mentioned in the memo, staff has some concerns about biofiltration installations directly adjacent to private property. And when I say private property, I should preface that with private residential property. Historically, we have only done that in commercial or business district type areas. On a project many years ago, I don't remember the exact date, but I do recall there was some discussion. We were working on some roadway reconstruction in the northwest area. And some of you who are familiar with that area may know that there are some streets where at the intersections, the roadway width is significantly wider than it is maybe 120, 140 feet north or south, east or west of. No one's really sure why they were constructed that way. And so in the past, we had looked at multiple opportunities to narrow that roadway and use that area exactly for this purpose, for biofiltration basins, green infrastructure installations. At that time, the response from the adjacent private property owners was swift and significant. And we'll just say they weren't in favor of the idea. I do have, partly stemming from that, but for other reasons, some concerns with these directly adjacent to private residential property. Couple things I would ask that you keep in mind. Typically, when we in the past have talked about green infrastructure, we have talked about it for purposes of water quality improvement. As you know, in the combined sewer area, water quality is less of an issue because most all of the stormwater is treated pending a combined sewer overflow by the district. So that's exactly the reason that in past discussions, we have asked that you focus grant money for building green alleys in the separated sewer area because it provides far more water quality benefits than it would to build those in the combined sewer area. So when we're talking about combined sewer area, really what we want to talk about is water quality. Excuse me, not quality, quantity reduction. The types of installations that we are talking about, particularly in phase 1, are not of the size or scope that would have major quantity reduction capability. I'm not suggesting that you should not do green infrastructure. I think that the Village of Shorewood has really been a leader and taken a lot of pride in being on the forefront of green infrastructure and green considerations. And I absolutely would recommend that you consider some type of green infrastructure installation on all phases of this project. But in the combined sewer area, I would state to you that it could be argued that the primary benefit there is going to be education and helping people understand why green infrastructure is important, what it does, what they can do themselves, why the village does it. Those are intangible benefits. The quantity reduction that you will get from these installations, it will not be significant. That said, on phase 1, that is the reason that we recommended in the memo the installation at the toe of the Menlo Boulevard, primarily because not adjacent to private property, but very visible to the general public. That location between the north-south crosswalk and the curb street won't impact the use of the boulevard by the neighborhood residents. I know how sacred that is. So that's the reason for staff's recommendation related to phase one. Related to phase two, you'll note the recommendation is that this review and discussion, particularly for Downer, get kicked back to Public Works. And we can do some working meetings to work through those recommendations and what might ultimately come before the board for inclusion in phase two.
Okay. But for now, because of the timeline, we really need to you need direction on phase one. So
Tonight, this
kicking
evening,
it back
yes.
is not an issue. There's not an option.
Correct.
Okay. And so let's say that the board wanted to be like super aggressive about green infrastructure and we wanted to work with those property owners and all of that. What would you need from us? I'm just saying hypothetically, I'm not saying I'm going to say it, but if there's somebody in the group that's like, come on, we can do it. You would need this board to
Tell us to figure out how to make it work.
or get behind you and do some outreach or
Quite honestly, haven't completely thought through that avenue.
okay.
While I very much appreciate the question, I don't have a great answer for you
Okay.
tonight.
All right. So if anybody's thinking of, forging ahead, let's just, we'll think. So questions, trustee Stokebrand.
So if you did want to do the first three, the Stratford, Shepherd, Maryland, you literally have to contact each property owner and say, are you interested in, because otherwise it's pointless.
I don't know that technically speaking, you have to. I
But
think
you'd want,
certainly
mean,
you'd want.
If you, considering the pushback you had the last time you tried this, that'd be the most effective way to move forward, which is ask them specifically, what do you think? And so this would be in the parkway, right?
Correct.
And so when winter came and spring came, who would maintenance of that biofiltration basin fall to?
That would be the village's response.
So we'd be taking on some real estate.
Um,
Because right now,
Yes.
if it's mowed, the
It's-
resident does it. But so now the DPW would drive around and I have to say our biofiltration basins look beautiful right now all around the village. Now is a perfect time to sell biofiltration basins because they're so pretty. Everything's blooming.
Agreed. The Wilson ones are beautiful. We're having some issues with encroachment of thistle and other undesirables, but yes, they've really, it's taken a couple years for them to really mature to what we always envisioned they would look like, and they are there. I would suggest that one of the concerns of a private property owner would likely be the types of plant materials in the area. I don't think we would want something that's 4, 5, 6 feet tall, the way that we have on Wilson and some of the other areas. So it would be a very different look, far more akin to some of the pictures that showed, where it would have to be something much lower.
More like the high school parking lot, probably.
I hope it does.
Okay. Well, perhaps we're getting ahead of ourselves, but you're talking about some considerations.
There would not be any fences like some of those on Capitol.
That's correct. There would
So
not.
this would just be that big curve.
It would
It's a big
basically
curve.
be, have them outlined in curb. I don't, I think in a residential area, you probably prefer not to.
You mean you would just have the flat sidewalk going into the bios?
Yep. Well, sidewalk edge, we may do a different treatment, but the edges that would be perpendicular to the walk and the curb would likely. Hard.
Trustee Ursink. Oh,
yeah,
I'm sorry,
so-
did you have more questions?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, we have a rain garden that we put in with the MMSD promotion, and the thing is to kind of let them go so they get that good root system, and I just see them kind of spilling over into the sidewalk.
It's a possibility, right? So that was one of the considerations.
So if we don't move forward with phase one, green infrastructure, where do these funds then? Can we,
So there is one that's recommended.
There's one recommended here. Okay. So the rest of the funds, if we don't do all of them, where do those?
So the funds that I referenced from MMSD are the Green Solutions Program.
Mhm.
They do allow us to accumulate allocated funds for brief periods of time, so long as we have made it clear that we intend to use them and are not just sitting on them.
Mhm.
The district is well aware of this project and our intent to utilize some form of green infrastructure. And I'm not concerned that they would have any hesitation allowing us to accumulate.
For phase 2. And then which, I apologize, but just which one is recommended here out of all of these, out of the first 4?
Maryland. at
Maryland and
And,
Menlo.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. Other questions or a motion? Trustee Stokbrand.
I move that green infrastructure installations be included in the Southeast Area Combined Sewer Improvements Phase 1 project at west end of Menlo Boulevard at Maryland Avenue.
Second.
Any discussion?
You don't necessarily have to tear up the whole street, but you would need to reroute storm sewer. So it's not just, you don't just dig a hole and plant plants. There's a little more involved.
Question.
I'm
Mhm.
sorry, there's just one other question. I know we were having problems with, moisture and our street lighting. That's been a big issue in the past. And I know there's got to be electricity going underneath there. Do these basins have any effect, any greater effect on those potential lighting systems?
Well, it'll be all new conduit.
It'll be all.
So it'll
new con-
be-
it'll-
It'll
Okay,
be
it'll
like
all be new
Superman.
conduits, right?
I mean, I think we would certainly do our best to cite them so that we were not running streetlight conduit through them.
Mhm.
For the most part, would make some adjustments with the light.
I
plan.
assume. Okay.
Phil, did you want to add something? I didn't want to discourage you. No. Okay. Yeah. Right. Great. Exactly. Okay. Other discussion? All right. I don't know. Trustee Kudo looked like he was winding up for a pitch.
I have a hard time. Construction,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Like,
Well,
why one and not two?
right. So what I would say is take the motion as it stands now, and you could always make a second motion for any of these others if you wanted to try to get support for it.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0. Would anybody like to make a motion for the not recommended options?
And when you phrase it that way.
Yeah, well, if the shoe fits.
Erica, I just have to say, I think, what it's sounding like is, and I'm with you 100%, but it sounds like these might just be for show.
Yeah.
It's not really,
Exactly.
they're not going anywhere. They're not as productive as we'd want them to be for the funds that we're putting into them, where we could take those funds and put them into something bigger into phase 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with that. I would like to see what else we could do with those. That would be perhaps more practical or have a larger.
Well, I think Public Works Committee will be on top of that.
Exactly.
I'll make
All
sure
right.
of it.
Don't miss it. All right, thank you very much. That's a great update. It's getting closer and closer. Is there another item related? Okay.
There's Suggested action.
Oh,
Does it need a motion?
suggested action,
I'd
phase 2.
prefer To memorialize the direction.
Yep. Is there a motion to,
I I can make a motion.
Yeah.
I move to refer the review of GI enhancements to the Public Works Committee for review and recommendation
Well done. Second. Oh,
Second.
For phase 2.
for phase 2. Thank you.
Okay, motion by trustee Moore Baldoff, and I believe trustee Lynn got it in there. And everybody else. So it was a unanimous motion, and any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. All right. So motion carries, or the refer carries 6-0. Now can we say thank you very much? Okay. Thank you very much. I'm so excited for this project. All right, we are moving on to the consent agenda, I believe. Is that,
I'm excited to hear you're excited because I feel like it's been years.
oh my
that
gosh,
this
I
has been in the
know.
works and now we're
2010,
Yeah.
it's just like yesterday.
Yep.
Okay. So item 5, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion to approve by trustee Moore Baldoff, seconded by trustee Ursink. Any discussion? I'd like to remove 5B and E. Any other discussion?
You said E already, isn't Edward?
Mhm.
I'd like to pull F, G, and H, please.
5G, H. F, G, and H?
F, G, and H, correct.
5F, 5G, and 5H. I said 5B and 5E. All right, any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the consent agenda minus 5B, E, F, G, and H, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving on to item 6, or motion carries 6-0. Moving on to item 6, items removed from the consent agenda. Item 5B is considered regular village board minutes, August 1st, 2022. There is a slight error in the motion to approve the design of North Oakland. It accidentally says no, with a street light. And I believe the motion was no street light. I emailed Clerk Harrell earlier today and she's gonna make the adjustment. All right, so motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Aye.
So moved.
Okay.
Oh.
Motion by trustee
Second.
Ursink, seconded by trustee Moore Baldoff. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
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 Motion passes 5-0. Please note that trustee Kudo. Okay, motion 6-0. Is someone trying to tell me we need a bio break? Oh, okay, so that's bio. Anyway, 5E, consider RFP for Public Works Facility Needs Assessment, Site Evaluation, and Concept Design. I emailed earlier today, there's a line in it that says assess for, the scope of work would assess for the economic and urban design impact. And I wanted to add environmental impact. And I believe it was item D, yeah. Phase 2, 1D. At economic, environmental, and urban design. So any other discussion on the RFP?
Trying to scroll.
Okay.
Yeah, I was wondering if we could get, I was interested in understanding more clearly the part about Whitefish Bay. We're extending an opportunity to Whitefish Bay to submit
To be on the review panel?
It was just an extension to be on the review panel if they had a desire to be, given the location of the transfer station on our site. We did reach out to them. They have thoughtfully said that they don't believe their assistance is needed in our process, but are happy to assist if there's any other way.
Oh,
So
okay.
we'll keep them up to date. Just in terms of our communication, I want to make sure that they're always well informed in terms of what we're doing and the process that we're moving through. So in advance of this meeting, they did receive a copy of the RFP, and I just want to make sure that those lines of communication are always moving, so that we're not having to catch any of our partners up on the work that we're doing here.
I mean, the impression that I got from the 2 times that I was with them, was that they were very interested in collaboration. And so, okay, so under facility needs, I had a question about number 5, future space needs, 5A, and then 5B, identify the needed space for services provided. So if we're not certain yet if we're going to change our service levels, how would that lack of clarity impact this RFP? So if we're not sure we're going to have a transfer station, if we're not sure we're going to continue to do garbage removal, if we're going to contract that out to waste management, if we're not sure we're going to collect electronics like we do, how is a contractor going to come up with a design concept when we have not decided what services we'll be providing going forward? Like, what if we decide we want to do garbage pickup based upon weight?
Right.
How will
so-
they know?
So is your observation, is your question whether there's something missing from the RFP, like a step that's missing that needs to be there? Because what we're being asked to is to review and consider and approve this or alter this RFP.
Right. So how are they going to identify needed space for each service provided if we don't know what services we're going to provide in?
It sounds like the question is, when are we having a discussion about service delivery? And is that part of this RFP?
Yeah. Because we haven't decided yet what we're going to do going.
Mhm. Right. So is there a step within this RFP where there would be a discussion of services provided in the future?
I think that would go beyond the scope of assessing sites and site evaluation. I think that they could take potentially different options. For example, the transfer station. If there wasn't one site, if there was a desire to move forward with continuing with the transfer station, there weren't sites available for a transfer station, maybe it's on a different site, maybe it's on the same site, maybe some different options would come into play. But I think what we know now are the services we're providing. And I think that we could have thoughtful discussion with a vendor who would be reviewing this to say what would be some possible options on how we would move forward, given the services that we do provide, and how may that impact the scope and workflow pattern that we have delivering the services that we have now.
But we don't want it to be limited to now.
Right. But again, we're talking about the RFP. So is there a place in this RFP that we can do that work?
Yeah, so can we,
Or
change the
do we
language?
need to change the language or add something?
can we change it so that identify the needed space for each service provided and possible service changes going forward in all categories?
Great
Reduction
suggestion.
or addition.
Mhm. So it looks like I just want to hear what trustee Moore Baldoff is saying.
I guess to me, it just seems like some of what we are going to get from this RFP is really going to inform that conversation we have about what's possible, because I think that we're going to see vendors come to us with some different visions and opportunities that, that's not what we do. We don't have that expertise to come up with it. So that's what I'm hoping to see here is something that maybe helps shape our process and gives us ideas. So I would hope that the vendors who respond to this RFP, can kind of rise to that occasion and provide us with those, kind of perspective ideas. I think that's what we're asking for. If there's language that you want to add to clarify, I'm not like against that, but I think that we are telling them we don't know what we're going to do, and part of why we need to hire someone is so they can help us figure it out.
Yeah, I guess
So
as
is
long as
your
it's very
feeling-
clear.
Excuse me, is your feeling then that the RFP as it's written allows us to do that or sets out that?
I think so, because, I just think that the possibilities are it's pretty expansive, what's possible and potentially possible. And I would rather, see what we get and have that be a starting point. Maybe everything we get, doesn't get to the vision of what's possible and we have to start over. But I think that we're going to get some
Based on
creative
this
proposals.
RFP, because that's what
Yes.
this, that's what's before us. Okay, trustee Kudo?
With all due respect, I disagree. I think it's real easy to add some clarifying language. I think when you're a vendor or you're putting stuff out for RFP, you want as much clarity as you can get for the project, right? So if that means we may, and it's just a couple, just one extra line or whatever, but it's more of a, we may change what we want to do and how we want to do it moving forward, and you should be aware of that. So you should think perhaps of other ideas. I think just adding that in allows for the most amount of flexibility moving forward. So I don't have a problem with that added language. I'd rather put it in there and know that it's something that is to be expected of them than hope that they rise to the occasion.
Yeah, but then I think that we would need to say what potential services, that to me is the challenge of like, what other potential services might we provide? I think that it's,
Or would we stop providing?
or would we stop? Right.
Well, you could just say it's services which may increase or decrease.
And I,
Or reduction or increasing services in the future.
Give us options. Just under.
It changes the scope,
Well, we haven't had the discussion yet about service levels, so it
And it's
seems to me
been-
that we kind of put the horse before the cart here.
well, I
The
think
cart
we've,
before the horse.
yeah,
because
the feedback is what I've heard the board say, that there is a desire to have a service level discussion so that we can evaluate what the options are for sites and what we need from a facility. So I think the key is, as you brought forward, is to just make sure that there's some place in this RFP or process that notes that there will be some discussion about service delivery. We don't necessarily need this consultant to go out and do a lot of research and data analysis and contract, assessment. But we do need, our expectation is that we would be having that discussion because it's been requested. So is there a way to, if it doesn't belong in this RFP, could we schedule it sort of in coordination? Like maybe the consultant doesn't necessarily have that discussion, but we just plan it for in.
the hard part for me would be I don't. So one, I don't know how much more work this really would make for a consultant, right? Because it's not my area of expertise. Two, if we're going to have the discussion, we should just, and I think we should just have the discussion. I don't know, to add a little bit of language, like the board is discussing what our services are going to be moving forward. We don't need you to analyze these
Right.
35 possibilities.
Mhm.
We just need you to know that there might be some movement on services from the village's perspective. I think is a really easy thing to do in an RFP. Going back to Attorney Bear's point, I don't think we, again, need to say, here are the 25 contingencies that we need you to be prepared for. So please charge us a ton of money.
Mhm.
And I'm comfortable adding that in so that they know, or they should know, that we're having that discussion.
I'm sorry, I think I was trying to listen to the discussion going back and forth, but was there a suggestion on language?
Yeah,
I have
think
the new
trustee-
suggestion.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Identify the needed space for each, should be singular there, each service provided, acknowledging that services and service levels could change, or recognizing that services and service levels could change in the near future.
Or that the board will consider service levels.
Or we're
And
having a
service.
discussion. I mean, just
Yeah.
something to key them
I
into
worked
the
really
fact.
hard on this. Now you don't like it.
I'm just,
I think that was good.
I got just the right
I-
verb. I
I
got
think
just
that
the right
was-
noun, and now you
Yeah.
don't like it.
I think that was succinct.
Can I
I-
second that? Is
Yep.
that?
I think it's
Do you want me
great.
to repeat it?
Oh, I don't know if Toya's kidding.
Identify the needed space for each service provided, acknowledging that services and service levels could change.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So we have that. So is there a motion to approve this
Okay.
RFP with the amended language?
I had some more.
Oh, she's just getting started, everybody. Okay.
I guess I would like to see a little bit more of an effort to make it clear that we are considering staying in the current site. And I'm confused. At one point, we talk about up to five sites will be arranged. But then we're going to look at later, it's three something. Where did that go?
Can you tell me where you are in the document?
Okay, under site evaluation, evaluate current and other available properties to best support the needs of the department and community, recognizing that such a property is not likely available within its municipal boundaries. We'll accept the current one, right?
Right.
We've heard that there's plenty of challenges to build a new facility on the current
So
space.
staying in the village, it's either the current site or it's not in the
Right.
village.
Yes.
I mean,
Right.
Is that basically what we're saying?
Yes.
But then we talk about up to 5 sites will be arranged. What, like yard arrangement plans? Create 5 building and yard arrangement plans for DP functions, up to 5
you know what-
sites.
What page that's on?
It's on page
two-
two,
It's on page
168.
Yeah, I think we're right here.
It's item E as in Edward.
So I'm assuming they're gonna identify 5 different sites.
And so
And-
could we say that one of those should be the current site? Does one of the 5 be the current site?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that that's the way that I read it. Now I remember because 5.3 up there where it says future space needs, to me, that rang the bell about, oh, that'll be about what future service delivery will dovetail that in. So I remember, and now I remember that it says somewhere in it that we're evaluating the current space and the current site. And then, so I know it's in there somewhere. I just can't think of what it is. So
So
I'm not
for 5E,
disagreeing.
could we say up to 5 sites, comma, including the current location, comma, will be arranged?
Yes.
Great. Anything else? What's next?
Phase 3 concept design, take the top 3 site candidates and advance to a conceptual design, analyzing the engineering, et cetera, et cetera. Could we make it 4 sites, one of which is the current site?
Can I, point of clarification?
Well, yeah, the current site would be a demo and then it would. But anyway, it could. Trustee Kudo.
Who determines the top 3 site candidates?
We would.
Staff?
Well, you.
I didn't hear
would
your
include-
answer. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
we would, meaning we would, staff.
But not
Board.
the trustees would not be involved in that.
Oh, I would think that you would need to be.
Yeah, we would be involved.
Yeah.
So
there'd
these
be
are
a-
all phases. So
Mhm.
each phase will come to us for an update and then requested action, just like other projects that we have.
So what I would, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Would it come to DPW first? Or would we do it as a cow? How would we?
We can work that out. I don't know that it's in the it is RFP related. But I hear your.
I'm just concerned that it be really, really public and really transparent. I mean, I just
Yeah.
don't want this happening in a staff meeting with a consultant.
I don't think that is going to happen. We don't do business that way.
So at the end of phase 2,
Mhm.
it says, prepare plans, reports, and presentations necessary for public visualization of the proposed development and present findings to the village board. We could clarify at that point that the board provides, or at some point when that makes sense for the board to provide direction and narrowing down the scope to 3 or 4 or however much you choose. And then this,
Right. So it would be.
the only reason I put in 3, you can make it whatever number you want, but if I was their consultant looking at it, I'd want to know like, oh, it's not just like an open window. I'm not going to
Yeah.
evaluate
Right.
Is there any way to add
20 sites.
at 2 in phase 2 to add prepare blah, 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 findings to the village board for approval
Right. For direction.
or something that gives us a kick at the can at the end of
Mhm.
2?
I think it's implied there, but I can understand wanting to put that.
Yeah,
Clarifying
present
language.
finding is very different than for approval.
Or, right.
I mean, I just think that this is going to be probably the largest development any of our redevelopment or whatever that any of us do the entire time. Board. So having a number of opportunities for input on this and sort of codifying that into this RFP,
Mhm.
I think is important.
Mhm. No, I'm happy to, I appreciate this thought.
Do you then want to add in similar to that one step that number 2 under phase 2? Do you want to add in a similar checkpoint under phase 3?
Mhm. Yes, please.
That's what I'm hearing. And I
Yeah.
think that would be good to be consistent at each one. Okay.
Well, I think you're right about the top 3. You need to narrow it down, but could we make it the top 4 sites, one of which is the current village DPW site? So that then we know we've given that chance we've given that location every shot at,
Mhm.
it's not like we've done due diligence.
Mhm. Yeah.
Works for me.
Great. This was the feedback I was looking for. If there was
Yeah.
any, this is good. Thank you.
There might be more.
She's got 11
Oh,
more.
yeah, there's
but
more.
yeah,
Right.
And then, so just to clarify, we limit it to inspecting 4 sites, including our own. Is there any downfall to not just looking at the 5 sites, including our own?
I think you gotta narrow it, just the,
4 sites and our
yeah,
own.
because they're gonna be findings. And if we're not satisfied, we can go back and then they can charge us more money.
I mean, I'm assuming they can find that many sites.
Right.
Right.
It might be. Exactly. And if at any checkpoint, we aren't getting what we need, we figure it out. That's why we have checkpoints.
I have no more questions.
Yes.
See this process play out regardless. That, if the this evaluate whether or not you might change the service levels or not. Maybe you don't care, because you're gonna want to know at the current levels of what we're producing and what we're providing to the public, what's it gonna cost to do this? And that'll be information in your toolbox that you can use to inform those other decisions. So regardless, I think this is something that you want to know. That's all.
I think we're headed in the right direction.
So the one thing that this probably wouldn't address, because it's all about a site, or would it
And
address?
facility.
Would it address, like, let's say we found a place in River West, would it take into consideration fuel costs and transportation time?
That
Or is
was
it-
the economic impact that I
Oh,
added.
okay, okay.
So thanks to me, it will, but no, I'm just kidding. I don't usually have these detailed things. I was really like on my game. All right. Is there a motion to approve the RFP as amended?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion by trustee Moore Baldoff, seconded by trustee Ursink. Any discussion? Thanks for all the input, everyone. And all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. All right. Oh, my thing went to sleep. Oh, we still have a couple more consent agenda. Okay, 5F.
DNA.
Consider authorization to hire equipment operator. Trustee Stokebrand.
I was just looking for some feedback about how this affects the department in terms of numbers. And I can't remember where we are with staffing. I know the electrician is still open. And then, of course, now we're going to hire a superintendent versus a assistant department.
So none of these items would change our overall numbers. It simply would allow us some flexibility in assigning titles to the 19 positions that have been authorized and budgeted.
So you're reclassifying essentially 2 positions.
Correct.
Um,
So we would put the electrician position description, I'm going to move it with your approval. I will move it in my electronic folder from active position to non-active position.
mhm.
And in its place will be the maintenance, the technician.
System maintenance technician. So
Correct.
that will be the active.
That'll be the active position.
So you won't be recruiting for an electrician. You're going to be recruiting for a maintenance technician who will do electrical work.
Correct.
Mhm.
Our recruitment for electrician, spectacularly successful.
Mhm.
We, as I mentioned, have a couple of staff members that have expressed interest in the position, but do not hold the qualifications required in the electrician position job description. So the thought was that we would modify that to a technician level with the understanding that for the near future, we will continue to require support from an electrical contractor. And then ideally, in my perfect world, we will never again be in the position where we have one person who knows
everything
about the streetlight system. It's my goal to have multiple people cross-trained. That's going to take some time. But as I mentioned, this new position incorporates all of the responsibilities of the previous electrician. But what I would like to do is use this title as an overlay or a slash. Say, your equipment operator slash streetlight technician, or an equipment operator slash sign technician. I mean, so it, I don't at this point, should this position description be approved, have any intention of hiring, if all things stay as they are, 3:30 when everybody walked out the door. I don't have any intention to hire this position. My intention would be to use this position and apply the label to existing staff.
Does that answer your question, trustee?
So it just seems sort of like we're losing a skill level that you feel like that. I mean, could we put one of these people through the journeyman program to be an electrician? That's not worth the time or the energy, or nobody's interested. I mean, like some of you talked earlier about police hiring, and the labor industry is such that right now sometimes you have to put 3 people through school to get what you need.
I think that that's certainly a discussion that we could have. I think to my knowledge and understanding, there aren't a lot of options for municipal streetlight school. So you really are talking journeyman electrician type of education. That is a very, very broad brush for the very specific skill set that we want. And I think we'd really have to talk about some type of employment contract, because we would be investing a considerable amount of time and a considerable sum in an individual who could just leave for, $2 more an hour at. And so I would love opportunities to be able to do that. At this point, there aren't a ton of them out there without going like full-on electrician, which really is more, a little more than we need. Most of your trades these days are building electric. In fact, there's really only one firm in the entire Southeast region that does real specialization for the outdoor, and that's who we're utilizing right now.
It sounds kind of tenuous. I mean, it sounds like it's just relying on this one company sounds.
It's not ideal. If all these 3, or this in particular goes through tonight, it is my intent to come back at some point, which I can't place a date on yet just because things are a little unsettled right now. But it's my intent to do an RFP for electrical services as required. Right now we're kind of doing this on an emergency basis because we've had this issue that we can't resolve through staffing. But if we intend to, or it's our plan to use this same type of service for the immediate future, I think it is in the village's best interest to get, proposals from multiple vendors.
It sounds like there's only one.
Well, there's one, with all the work that we've done to date, there's only one who has the capacity and has expressed any.
Well, if I may kind of get us back to the task at hand, in terms of we're being asked to approve a position. It's not going to add numbers to the department. What I'm hearing from this discussion and types of questions is that while this position would not have a licensed electrician requirement, we can safely do the work without a licensed electrician on staff. Is that what we should be understanding?
That is absolutely the end goal.
Okay.
Okay, and I just had one other question. So instead of going with if I may, and then I'll just make a motion for all 3 of them. So instead of an assistant DPW director, why are we going to a superintendent? Why
That's
change
a
the
different
name?
agenda.
It is. I know. I was just gonna and then make a
Yeah,
motion.
I think we should take them one at a
Okay.
time. Yeah.
I'll make a motion then if you're
You have a
Mhm.
question about this one?
I just have a question about the systems maintenance technician position. So, I mean, if through the process of filling that position, someone who is a licensed electrician wants the job, there's no reason they couldn't get it, correct?
Provided that we have a vacancy and they, like, I don't intend to post this position and say, hey,
You can
outside world. we
backfill it.
hired
Got
a-"
it. Okay, this is more of to fill it internally.
Mhm.
Got it.
It gives the flexibility. Thanks. Good question, though. All right. Motion?
I move to authorize staff to hire for the equipment operator position.
Second.
It's actually a position. Oh, sorry. Are we on F? Okay, consider authorization to hire equipment operator. Thank you.
There.
Very similar. Yeah. Okay, motion by trustee Stokebrand. Was there a second? A second by trustee Lynn. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to 5G, consider approval systems maintenance technician position description.
I move to approve the systems maintenance technician position description.
Second.
Motion by trustee Stokebrand to approve, seconded by trustee Kudo. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. 5H, consider authorization to hire public works superintendent. Trustee Stokebrand.
I'll ask my question. Why are we hiring a superintendent instead of an assistant? PW, will the pay be the same?
The pay would be the same. The range would not change. So we're not requesting an adjustment to the salary range classification. In reality, as we reviewed the position and the responsibilities that come with it, and in fact, this was prompted largely by Mr. Kolste, who said he didn't truly function as an assistant director in the sense that in most organizations, your assistant director is an administrative or an administrative managerial position. He functioned almost exclusively as an operation managerial position. And in the public works world, more typically, that is classified as a superintendent. They said, and frankly, we did see this when Joel was hired. There's just a different expectation between assistant director and superintendent. And what we really need is someone who is very operations focused, very construction focused, and does the vast majority of their work and focuses the vast majority of their attention on the staff and in the field. That's a superintendent.
An administrator is in the office. Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Yes,
one quick
trustee
question.
Kudo.
Knowing what's on the horizon for reporting 2024 with lead and everything, are you going to require in the future an assistant director that's going to be able to handle a little bit more of the clerical and managerial things?
If you pressed me at this point, I would say I could certainly make a case for the addition of a utility superintendent position.
Okay, so basically the same type of.
A similar level
Mhm.
position in the hierarchy, but that would be responsible for all of both the water and increasing sewer and stormwater regulations that are frankly becoming more than I can do by myself.
Right, it's changed a lot. We didn't even have a comprehensive facilities plan 10, 12 years ago. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. All right, trustee
ready for a motion?
Stokebrand. Yes, please.
I move to authorize staff to hire for the public works superintendent position.
Second.
We have a motion by trustee Stokebrand, seconded by trustee Kudo for approval. or authorization. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. That concludes the consent agenda, or item 6. Item 7, public hearings. There are none this evening. Number 8, citizens to be heard. This item is for matters not on the agenda. Are there any citizens to be heard this evening? There's only one. We've already heard from you. Okay. Item 9, new business. 9A, consider special events permit, temporary cabaret license, and temporary extension of premise for Three Lions, November 25th and December 18th, 2022 for soccer events. And the award for most patient applicant goes to Tink. So there's a packet, so there's a memo in our packet regarding this request. So hopefully everybody has reviewed that. If there are any, we're used to Three Lions hosting really fabulous events for international sporting events. This is different because it's November 25th and December 18th. So there's a seasonal aspect of it that's different. Everything has been reviewed and it is before us. Are there any questions from the board at this time? Is there, oh, yes.
I feel like we just need to ask questions. He's been here this whole time.
I know. No, I actually think-
I'm struggling here. Tell us about
Is
these great
there-
events here.
Mr. Tink, is there anything that you would like to say since you've?
No,
that's-
absolutely not.
Okay. I don't
know
want
you guys are
to.
doing it, working out as well, so just,
Yeah.
appreciate you hearing out and let me know what's going on.
Yeah, so thank you for being on hand for any questions. So we would take questions or a motion at this time. Trustee Ursink.
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
So I move to recommend approval of the special event permit, cabaret and extension of premise with payment of additional fees for public works and police.
I'll second that.
Motion to approve by trustee Ursink, seconded by trustee Moore Baldoff. Any discussion?
Did this have to go to a JP&L or anything or no? No.
I do have a question on that.
Yes.
Just, we didn't ask to have any police involved in the situation. Was that a board decision that the police needed to be involved? As we've run these events before without police presence.
You know, I think we just had a conversation about an event coming up here in October called Rocktoberfest, and Chief Worth was with us, and she did say that, you know, it was, you know, she would like the police to be involved. So, you know, I guess I'd be open to a friendly amendment if you all feel like the police shouldn't be involved in this scenario. But I do kind of feel with scenarios that have gone on nationally that it'd be probably, you know, I definitely would support the police being involved in some fashion. So.
I think and I recall in the past where Three Lions has hired their own security because before it was just a matter of security in terms of the patrons enjoying the event. We're in a different environment now. And while, and one of the things that we will do with Chief Worth on board is to update kind of our special event security planning for the outside. And we're just not there yet, but this is kind of the direction that we're going probably. Trustee Moore Baldoff.
I was just going to say, I think that, you know, we'll, you know, have conversations with business owners and folks who are doing these kinds of events to make sure that it's the right footprint. I don't think that any of us or the chief envisions, you know, like just a swarm of officers from what it sounded like earlier when this came up about the other event was more just, you know, kind of, they'll be responding to issues anyway with street closures because that's what happens. And, you know, that the recommendation is to have a, you know, I think a small footprint, but a presence. But I think we'll have conversations with people about what that'll look like going forward and certainly not trying to, you know, foist the whole staff on an event.
Yeah, and we don't have the capacity, but I will say that after Highland Park Parade this year, I cannot take, I know we don't have an official plan involved or policy, but as a chief elected, I cannot take any risks. It was absolutely terrifying to think of what would happen. And so to know that our police officers, whoever's there that day, will be trained for an active situation, I want you guys to have that. So I hate talking about it, but we're kind of past that day and age of like, we got this covered. We just nobody, it changed in the last 6 months for me. I know. So sorry to get emotional at that point, but I just really, that's how much I care. Yeah. So other questions or comments before we take a vote? All right. Thank you for being a continued gathering spot for us.
Thank you for having us.
All those in favors as of the motion is presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 6-0. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so moving on, I have to go back up to my agenda.
Do we want to take a quick bio
Oh,
break? Or
bio
do we
break,
want
yes.
to just truck through this? I could probably use just a minute to, I don't know. Does anybody else care one way or the other?
I can keep on trucking, but if everybody else needs a break, like I'm not gonna say no.
Okay.
Yes, that's basically it. All right, I think
That's
we
what
took
she
our
meant.
break. I think we took our break. We
Yep.
blew some steam. Okay. 9B, consider amendment to Clark Dietz 2025 Oakland Reconstruction Engineering Agreement. We have a memo in our packet explaining why this is before us this evening. As you'll recall, we went through a lot of discussions around the design elements that we wanted in terms of Oakland, North Oakland, which changed the scope of the engineering involved. And so here we are with the cost of those adjustments to the design. Are there any questions from the board? Trustee Stokebrand.
I was just looking at the, on the Clark Dietz letterhead there, the 8 hours of ramp design at $140 is $40,000. So that math doesn't quite add up, but because I thought, wow, how can 8 hours of design at 100? It's like.
It would be 8 hours per ramp
Oh,
slash
okay.
bump out at 140.
So
an hour.
36 times. Is that how many there are? 36 ADA ramps? Anyway, with the number, the total 50220 is correct.
Yeah, it's in the materials. Okay.
So we
so
saved
trustee-
250 on the traffic light, but we got, anyway.
With some engineering, right, and some design, right, we will spend it. Trustee Kudo.
Can I ask just a basic question, I guess? So I've seen us spend a decent amount of money. Would it be cheaper just to have?
We have been down that road.
He was our engineer for a while.
But I mean, like, we seem to spend a good amount on engineering. And
Future item for consideration.
so let's do that. Consider it later.
Add it to the
It's a matter of
list.
curiosity, right? Like
Well, and we can.
I just don't have the history, so.
We
Yeah.
can't, there is history, so we can pull that for you.
Okay.
I think it extends past the scope of this agenda item, so that's why I'm going to defer it. It's not that I don't want to talk about it. So matter at hand, questions or a motion? Trustee Stokebrand. Yes.
I move approval of an amendment to professional services agreement with Clark Dietz for the 2025 Oakland Avenue reconstruction project in the amount of $50,220.
Second.
Motion by trustee Stokebrand, seconded by trustee Ursink. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Thank you very much. 9C. Consider lead service lateral grant distribution approach. That we have a memo in our packet describing the situation and what the opportunities are. Any questions for Director Buchlik regarding the proposal? Hot mic.
I was just, so what are the totals here? I understand the reasoning for going the way you propose. Makes sense. I'm just, so how many total lead laterals? If we can get them done by the end of the year, wow, it sounds really tight. I was trying to add up. I know one place it said 23 or 24.
So to date, we have replaced 23. 3 are in progress. This is all on page 1 of the memo. 2 more have been identified and provided eligibility materials, but have not returned the paperwork. One of those 2 is one of the certified childcare facilities. Go figure.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know what else to do. So what we are looking for is a plan to identify properties that would be eligible to use the remaining funds, which we estimate will replace approximately another 25 to 28 or so laterals based on the prices that we've seen over the last couple of months.
So this $400,000 grant will do about 60 total.
Give or take.
So high level, you're going to try to do as many as you can, as economically, and you're trying to get contractors to jump on them.
Yeah, that's been a challenge. There's a lot of lead
Yeah.
service line work out there.
Yeah.
And contractors will generally prefer a project where they can mobilize and work
In one area.
for many days or
Yeah.
weeks, rather than come in one afternoon to do a service and pack up and go 5 blocks away and do another service and so
Mhm.
on.
Great. So what's in front of us is kind of our best guess of how we can make use of these funds and get the work done. Right?
Correct.
Other questions? Motion? Yes, trustee Ursing?
I actually have a question
Okay.
about the in-home daycare facility that is not.
I'm gonna call again. I'm gonna, put on my most charming self for a while, and then I'm just gonna say, why would you not do this?
So, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. I feel like I have like a higher responsibility to, if it's a problem and there's a facility in the village that could have this done and doesn't, and it's just ignoring you or choosing not to do it, at some point I would like to name a name and know what the facility is, assuming that facility is not letting their parents know, the parents of the children know. So it's a matter of public record that it was denied.
I'm going to attempt to reach out again this week. I'm going to point out that this is free, and next time we come around, it won't be. It will also not be optional. If I still don't get any satisfactory response, I will include name and contact information for distribution in the Friday update. How's that?
Fair enough.
That's great.
Works for me. Thank you.
I mean, you can tell that they're operational and everything, right?
Yep.
Just absurd. So
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can make a motion. So I move approval of program eligibility as outlined and direct staff to complete the implementation of the Village of Shorewood 2022 WDNR Safe Drinking Water Load Program, Private Lead Service Line Replacement Program.
Second.
Motion by trustee Ursing, seconded by trustee Stokebrand. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Moving on to 5D, consider state of Wisconsin safe drinking water. Sorry, I just lost if somebody could remember.
Consider state of Wisconsin safe drinking water loan program lead service line principal for given financial assistance agreement. So
use the state used to show.
One more time?
Yeah. So this is, there's a memo presentation. Are there any questions for Director Bushlick? If not, is there a memo? I mean, a motion.
Motion to approve the DNR Shorewood LSL 5630-01 financial assistance agreement.
Second.
Is that the right? Okay.
Yeah.
Motion by trustee Lynn, seconded by trustee Stokebrand. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 6-0. 9E, consider resolution 2022-09 authorizing execution of the Department of Natural Resources Principal Forgiven Financial Assistance Agreement. I imagine this is very closely aligned with the previous item. Is there a motion to approve?
Move to approve resolution 2022-09 authorizing execution of the Department of Natural Resources Principal Forgiven Financial Assistance Agreement.
Second.
Motion by trustee Lynn, seconded by trustee Ursink. Any discussion? Hearing none, this will be a roll call vote.
Trustee Kudo,
Aye.
trustee Ursink,
Aye.
trustee Moore Baldoff,
Yes.
President McKay,
Aye.
trustee Lynn,
Aye.
trustee Stokebrand.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Item 9F, the last item in new business, consider next step for housing rental offense strategy. There is a memo in our materials documenting the outcome of the last Community Development Authority meeting. We have two members of the CDA from the board that are here this evening, trustee Ursink, trustee Stokebrand. Are there any, we are asking to consider this recommendation from the CDA that they would like to gather information around a housing rental offense strategy related to a voucher program. Is there anything you'd like to add, trustee Stokebrand or trustee Ursink?
I would just like to add, I think it's in here, but this is not using any of the 2 million yet from TIF.
Correct. This
This
is
is-
just information gathering similar to
And it could
DPW.
be using federal funding is, so it's just moving something forward that is in front of us right now.
as an opportunity, and we don't have any, there's a lot of information gathering, feasibility, partner assessment, those kinds of things that, so this is not a policy that's coming before us at this time. It's just saying, and it also doesn't preclude any other action that may be considered related to TID1 extension funds that we have on hand. This is related to the previous task that was assigned to the CDA to explore different avenues for incentivizing and increasing affordable housing in Shorewood. So that criteria for using extension funds could be applied in the future. But this is a non-binding, it's information gathering. So trustee Kudo, I saw you.
I just had, I mean, in a past life, I worked for HACM, for the housing authority of the city of Milwaukee, in the voucher department.
You did.
I did.
Oh, that changes everything.
You'd be amazed. Yeah, no, I worked in Section 8 HACM housing. The only problem I have with this, and again, I recognize that this is a non-binding.
Yeah, so it'd be a problem with seeking the information.
Yeah, the only problem I have is that I don't at this point see vouchers as a long-term solution to our problem. Having spent time in the department, like I just, I would, but again, that's
So it sounds like you would vote against this recommendation for seeking information.
Can you say why? I mean, because as someone who doesn't have background.
Yeah, no, so I mean, what happened often is that you would, one, it doesn't lead to home ownership. It doesn't lead, depending on the voucher requirements, there are regulations on how much you can make a year to still qualify for the vouchers. So it was sort of this system that existed whereby folks were almost incentivized in order to stay on the voucher program, to not work too many hours or to not,
So
to
it's
not
like
do
healthcare. It's
whatever.
like the healthcare conundrum.
Yeah, and
right?
so it was, you were always in the situation where you felt heartbroken. Folks would go out and really sort of work incredibly hard and get great jobs and then get kicked out of their house because they could no longer be on the voucher program. And so you had sort of these predatory landlords who feasted on this problem. And so I would get people that were on the program. There are certainly folks that were on SSI or SSD rather, Social Security, disability benefits, who needed it and were going to be on it forever. And that was just the way it was going to be. But there were many folks who, were just sort of stuck because it didn't lead to homeownership. It just led to another round of rentals. And so, when we're looking at long-term for the village, I don't necessarily see the benefit to the voucher program. But I'm not going to I'm trying to stand in the way of getting more information so we can make a better decision. That's just a professional experience.
I think some of the things that you're sharing would be helpful to be included in the discussion as the CDA moves forward. One of the reasons why the recommendation is coming back here again as another touch point was because we wanted to facilitate this type of discussion. No differently than we were talking about with the Public Works having checkpoints. We don't want the CDA to get too far ahead of themselves if there are expressed concerns or things that just need to be further reviewed. So I really look forward to
So I should not
continuing
have
our
said I work for
conversation.
Hackham at one point. Yeah. All right. Yeah, that was.
But I think that,
great.
that is the feedback that we're at this next step. When we go into this next step of further review, that's the type of feedback we need to hear. And so gleaning from your expertise, as we go forward, because that's a voice that I didn't hear at the table when the CDA last met, so that's valuable. And I appreciate you vocalizing where you've been and what your experience has been. And we'll look forward to ways to bring that forward too.
I mean, I appreciate it. It was a while ago. So there are certainly folks that have far more up-to-date expertise that I would direct to, but.
Okay, that's not your out.
Yeah, right. Nice try.
You're
I
still
think-
in
Yeah,
bucket.
all right.
Please keep in mind that this is a recommendation to pursue to gather more information, and that type of information can include additional feedback from previous jobs or what have you. So, so let's stay focused on, we can give feedback tonight, but we are being asked to take action.
I
Yes.
just wanted to add, I did push very hard for home ownership, for a home ownership piece, and was basically told there's no way with our home values and our taxes in Shorewood, there's just no way to provide affordable housing with a path to homeownership.
That, and that actually was brought forward on August 1st, because the action was to pursue rental unit offense because home ownership offense is not a viable tool given our scenario. So that was brought forward and the board acted on that. And now this is the next step.
I would just make one note too, that in a community that's over half rentals, approaching a rental strategy is not the worst idea, or at least a good starting point. I would think.
Okay, is there a motion? Are we being asked to
Yeah.
receive the recommendation?
I move to approve the CDA consider creating affordable units within existing and currently proposed rental units through exploration of the creation of a voucher program.
Second. Motion by trustee Lynn, seconded by President McKay. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Item 10, I'll make this quick. 10A, village president, report to village officials, village president. Number one, the materials are linked. So I'm just wanted them to be in the packet. I'm open to questions and participation from other trustees. Trustee Kudo and Trustee Stokebrand have participated in the first by board. Anyway, and also Trustee Arndorfer. So we will continue to share information and bring it back. And I couldn't open myself up to questions now too, but I also know that it's late. Does anybody have any specific questions on anything that's in the materials? Okay, if anything happens, please contact me. 10A2, update on land acknowledgement meeting. So it really should be just report on land acknowledgement meeting, because I realize I don't think we've talked about this. But related to, it's not unusual to have land acknowledgement practices around First Nations with the Shorewood Waters program, and there's also practice around waters and land. So we started a conversation with the Historical Society around collecting the history of the area that's now known as Shorewood in terms of First Nations water and land historical events, places, things like that. So the Historical Society has volunteered to pull that together as it is archived. And so we will be probably looking to put that on an agenda in a coming months, maybe in November. Item 3, update on ICC racial equality or equity and inclusion committee meeting. We met on the kickoff meeting was August 29th. I meant to link the meeting summary in here. So my oversight for not getting that in. I will circulate it and make sure it's added to this materials afterwards. The next meeting I think is going to be in September on the 21st, I believe. 10.4 or A4, update on release of North Shore Police Study and receive direction from Village Board on study presentation. So as you will recall, the City of Glendale contracted with the Wisconsin Policy Forum to review data related to police services in the North Shore and to evaluate that data for potential opportunities for consolidation in the future if there was interest. So the mayor of Glendale wanted to have that information on study. I mean, he's really in favor of consolidation and hopes that everybody will jump on board. There is no interest from other municipalities to pursue that with him at this time. There's no forum to pursue that. The study does not necessarily belong to us, but we do have the invitation from Rob Henkin from the Policy Forum that he will come and present the findings. So I want to hear from the board whether you want that presentation or if you just want to receive the report once it's published and go from there, because there's no action to be taken.
So how long would it be? I mean, is it like a 5 or 10 minute?
Could be 15 minute.
If we specified about how much time, I think he could run through it. I think 10 minutes would be pretty fair.
Yeah.
That he could run through some of the slide decks that he has and then open it up to the board for questions or comments.
Would it be this fall, like during budget season, or is it imminent?
No.
The report
Like January?
The report's scheduled to be released in a week or two. You know, I anticipate, it could be as quick as a special order of business. similar to how we've done some of the other presentations tonight, or we could try to spec out a meeting that may not have as much content as we've had
It's
tonight.
very straightforward and it's not time sensitive. And if there
Yeah.
is not interest on the board, you can read it on your own.
I was gonna say, if it's gonna be out in a week, I feel like we could all review it, and then if we have questions, we could schedule
Yes.
something.
Yep. My job is to let you know that that invitation is out there and that there's not, really it's complete at this point.
I'm gonna be sending you a link to that report right before it goes out. So maybe I can, kind of put a placeholder on my schedule. We can let it sit with you guys for maybe a week or two, and then I can reconnect at a following meeting to see if you'd like that, and if, how long, what format, based upon what we know about some more upcoming sessions.
So was it Chief Nimmer who was interviewed, or was it Chief Worth for? How much staff, I'm just thinking, staff spent some time with these people.
Sure. Chief Worth did spend time. So did
you?
Chief, yes, I did. Really not so much reviewing kind of the information, looking at it, comparing. I reviewed the report, so did Chief Worth. We reviewed it together. We offered our comments on the draft that's there, wanting to make sure that the data is consistent and accurate, right? Because it's a lot of data collection. Not everyone does it in the same way, based upon the department. So there's been, a level of investment. I also recognize that ideally we'd all get together as 7 communities and review the report. I don't believe that may be feasible given some of the response from other communities who aren't supportive of reviewing consolidated efforts. For me, it's a little bit different. I think reviewing the information and getting more in tune with how our departments look overall is beneficial for everybody. So, I'll stop talking. It's late. Can you tell him?
Sounds
So I can reconnect with you if you guys would like to assess.
I don't feel strong.
What's
So
that?
if sounds like staff has spent enough time already. Let's
Hmm.
look over the summary that we get in.
Okay. Should I
I can-
reconnect with you guys in
Yeah.
a meeting or two and then just
Mhm.
take a pulse? Okay.
Let's do that. Thank you. A5, I attended the chief elected official workshop, August 23rd to 25th. I found it very valuable, helpful. If anybody wants to talk to me about it, the agenda is here and I'm open to that conversation. Finally, we have a 10th District Assembly representative, new one, newly elected, Darren Madison will replace David Bowen. And then also we have a new school board member, Abigail Fowler was appointed last week, as probably many of you know from the emails. So that's exciting also. That concludes my report. Oh, village trustees. Yes.
We've got the Shorewood Feast this weekend, September 10th, and we are in need of volunteers. So if any of you aren't scheduled to go to the dinner and you have the night free and you'd like to help out, we would love to have you. Maybe you know some people. You can direct them either my way or through Facebook. I think we have.
There's a sign up genius.
There's a sign up genius out there.
Takes
so-
only a minute.
and it's a lot more. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. I did it last year. I'm doing it again this year. Highly recommend.
If there's anybody in the audience,
And it's
anybody out there
very
that may be interested.
economical. You can't beat the price of volunteering and you still get the food.
Exactly.
All right. Anyone else? All right, reports of staff.
I just have one. It was a topic that, well, two topic that came up today. Earlier this year, we identified that the accessible pedestrian signals installed during the Capitol Drive reconstruction no longer work. And so we reached out to TAPCO with a quote to see what that would be to replace those. And today we found out it was about $12,000. And so in light of that, Leanne's looking at different, opportunities, and she reached out to the DOT to see if there are any grants. And so she's following up to see if this would be eligible for one of the grants, which is actually due on September 9th. And it would fund, if this program will fund these type of signals, and this work, it would cover, if, obtained, 90% of the cost. So the reason I'm talking to you about it now is that it came on the radar today. And our policy states that we're not allowed to submit any grant applications unless the board approves them. And so I wanted to say, we'd like to move forward. If this item is eligible, we'd like to move forward and submit the grant, with the understanding that we'll come back to you and let you know and inform you of it. But I think that it's a fair, really worthy item to have installed. And so I'd hate to miss the
Please.
opportunity.
Yeah, please do.
I would assume this is, one of them at least, is the northeast corner of Maryland and Capitol, right by St. Roberts, because I have seen that one karate kicked dozens and dozens of times. It doesn't work. Like, I cross there all the time. That one I know for sure does not work. And I see kids like boom, 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 like, which is, I'm sure, why in part at least it got broken. So
yeah, I'm not sure about the specific.
I've heard you blame children twice tonight.
Next, it'll be your dog.
Truman would
Anyway,
never.
Yeah. I don't know the specific intersections that she was referencing, but I
Well,
did just want to at
yeah.
least say, we have this opportunity. I don't want to
To save
break
some
any
money.
prior direction that the board's given, but if it's here and it's time sensitive, if there's not an objection, and I'm hearing there's no objection. Okay,
No objection.
great.
Go for it.
So
Let's go.
we'll take a look at that. And then President McCaig, you actually sent up a follow-up email. I had emailed the group just talking about the schedule for budget purposes. Let's see. We're looking at the dates for budget meetings and wanting to ensure that our Budget and Finance Committee Chair was present for scheduled meetings. And there was the suggestion, President McCaig, that you had. I apologize. I thought I printed it, but it was to move forward with having
Cow on Committee of the Whole
Committee of the
overview
Whole.
on the 19th, September 19th.
Okay.
And then refer to Budget and Finance for a wrap-up discussion on October 3rd. We can remove the October 17th Budget and Finance Committee that was scheduled. And then it will go to the board for hearing and consideration in November.
So that would actually be, the wrap-up meeting would be on October 10th.
Oh, sorry.
We'd need to go through department budget on October 3rd and then October 10th.
Oh, okay.
Well, okay. And then the elimination, sorry, I was just comparing the email and now up to the
Apologies.
schedules.
I was
So
going by-
in review,
yes,
because I love to talk to you about our budget meetings, because all of you are invited.
Mhm.
On September 19th would be a cow. And this is where staff would provide a budget overview to the board. Monday, October 3rd, there would be a special Budget and Finance Committee meeting where we'd have all of the budget sections covered, and this would include any questions to department heads. Monday, October 10th, special Budget and Finance Committee meeting, of which we would also conclude and deliberate on any outstanding items. And then that would lead up to the public hearing, which would occur on November 21st.
And yeah,
that what-
and tradition has said that, the budget goes to Budget and Finance for consideration, but all trustees are very strongly to encourage, and I can encourage to attend those special meetings and participate.
I can only speak to the time that I've been here, but all trustees have been invited and all have typically attended. To accommodate that, we also don't schedule any other committees to meet during this time. As you know, some, like tonight, we had are, we split up into groups, but at the time that those meetings are held, everyone has availability to go during that time and no other conflicting times will be scheduled.
And the purpose for that is that the Chair of Budget and Finance has prepped with the Director and so is able to, chair that, follow up on things and the like, and it's always worked.
And it's fun.
So anyway.
Okay,
So
moving on, sorry.
any objections to that plan? Okay, we appreciate Trustee Sokran, you looking at your schedule and letting us know so we can make the changes. Okay, anything else?
No,
Manager
that
Ewald?
concludes my report.
Okay,
Thank you.
I have one update that I forgot to mention, but Clerk Carroll has been appointed to the Wisconsin Municipal Clerks Association Conference Committee. Yes? So her first year in, they got the new. group. So anyway,
Congratulations.
Thank you very much for
They knew
serving.
great talent when they saw it.
Great. So moving on, future items of consideration. Do you have any?
Yep, sorry.
No
Just
problem.
hate to extend all of this, but in light of
It's
conversations I've had with DPW staff recently, I would like to set aside some time to review the contract of Volani. From what I understand, Volani has not been living up to their contract, and they've actually been a lot of questionable work that they've been doing in the village. So I know we've signed a 3-year contract with Volani that just started, but I would love to take a kind of a closer look at that contract to see, if they continue kind of not living up to the scope of work, what we can do to move forward from that contract and potentially, go back out for RFP.
Okay. Trustee Kudo.
Volani. What are they?
Landscaping?
Unfamiliar.
Landscaping. So,
Okay.
so historically, Shorewood is probably historically the village that has been on a pedestal for natural lawn care in
Yeah.
the village, right? And like we hold this distinction between with anybody in the North Shore, and we developed this plan with Green Team over in a very long extended period of time. Just recently, the contract came up and the village decided to go with Volani because it was a little cheaper and they were doing similar
procurement.
style of work. They were doing some similar work, so they went with Volani. But as of recently, Volani has just been doing a very bad job of the work that they've been doing, and it's really stressful for the staff right now because they've been getting a lot of complaints, and the villages, like Leanne had said at one point, those basins on Wilson, they may look nice, but there's all sorts of invasives kind of coming into those, like thistles and all sorts of stuff
Sure.
that aren't being taken care of right now. So,
And that's their contract.
that's their contract.
Gotcha.
Well,
So-
surely, they're working with them to improve it, right? Before you bail out on a contract.
No, they are,
Right.
and
This is
there's-
just to consider a future item for consideration.
exactly.
So that's not open for discussion. right now.
and it's just helpful for staff to know that it's on our
Willing.
radar
Yep.
and they can use that but
So-
they're setting up a plan with them. So
Okay.
Would this
just
be
wanted to bring that.
for review at the Public Works Committee?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. That's why I was
I just
wondering
wanted that
whether it would
clarification. I just didn't know. Okay, thank you.
That's what my thought is that, so the motion would be to refer contract review with Volani Landscaping to the Public Works Committee.
So moved.
I'll second that.
Okay. Motion by trustee Ursink, seconded by trustee Moore Baldoff. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. Anyone else with future items?
The village engineer we discussed
Okay.
earlier, just some background or however you want to handle it, just
Mhm. So maybe direct, would it be village manager or director Bushlick to provide?
Right, my question there would be, do you want to have that summary occur at the full board? Do you want just like a summary provided in a Friday update?
I don't
Would
know
you
what I
like
don't know.
it
So,
At the Public Works Committee?
I mean,
Maybe.
it's up to
Those are
the
just some
chairs if they
options.
want, but I'm not on that
Maybe.
committee, so.
Could it be to, would you be able to bring forward a summary under your report? And then if the board felt that it deserved more discussion and consideration, then it could be an agenda item?
Sure.
Or it could just be a call and.
So the reason I brought it up is, because I see that we're making disbursements to
Yeah.
Clark Dietz for not insignificant amounts of money.
Sure.
And, maybe as opposed to having a contractor,
Right, and
we could do something
previous
else.
board did go through this exercise for
So if
sure.
there's-
So
yeah.
there is.
If there's notes or
documentation.
history or
Yeah,
documentation
exactly.
or
I think
whatever.
it's helpful because we have a new board.
Yep.
You
Let's
could just
start with
forward
a-
an email, do an email form and send it to all of us.
Let's start with a summary. I'm gonna need Leanne's help because I haven't been here.
Sure, yeah.
Yes, and so she probably did the last update, but let me talk with her and let's see, likely not this week, but in the next week or so, get out a summary to the group and then you guys can, then if you want to pursue something further, then you can bring it up on a future agenda item.
Okay.
Does that sound?
Yeah, because it
Yeah,
doesn't
no, I
require
appreciate it.
board
Yeah.
action at this time. So I think that that would be great. So it's more of a follow-up.
Thank you.
Great.
Excellent. Anything else? All right,
Move to
3
adjourn.
hours. Move to adjourn, second.
Second.
Motion to adjourn by trustee Kudo, seconded by trustee Ursink. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned at 10:30.